We are ready to proceed, Mayor Patterson.
Thank you, Vicki. I will call this meeting to order. It is 7:04. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, June the 21st. Let's begin with roll call. Mr. Teixeira, please.
Certainly. Mayor Patterson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Here.
Councillor Dickard.
Present.
Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Present.
Councillor Fleet.
Present.
Councillor Hawking.
Present.
And Councillor Cable.
Present.
All here.
Thank you. Good evening, council, staff, guests, the viewing public, and the media. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest? I don't see any, and if one should arise during the meeting, you may declare it then. Item 3 on the agenda is additions or deletions, and I have one addition. It is the land acknowledgement statement. And I would like to ask if council would consider endorsing the reading of a land acknowledgement at the start of our meetings. Land and territorial acknowledgements have emerged in several municipalities following the publication of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. A land acknowledgement recognizes First Nations peoples on whose traditional territories we work and live. These acknowledgements demonstrate the recognition and respect to Indigenous peoples, both in the past and the present, and the contributions they have made to our communities and to our country. So since our public library has already initiated the reading at their meetings, I would like to suggest that we follow their lead. Agnes Rivers Moore, the chief librarian, has completed that research and has done a very good job. And I think it would be appropriate if we just follow that lead. And I'd like to hear your comments or thoughts about this. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
I think it would be a perfect time for that. I've obviously been part of that process. Very overdue in my humble estimation. So I think this is a great step.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Cable?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I agree with Councillor Fitzsimmons. I think it's an excellent addition. And maybe perhaps we could also look at in the future what other items from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report we could look at moving forward as a municipality.
Thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Hicks, did you have a comment? You're on mute.
Once per meeting, right? Thank you. I think that first of all, Councillor Cable, I congratulate him for wearing his orange today. I'm not wearing mine, but it's in my heart, I suppose. No, perfect timing. As Councillor Fitzsimmons has said, long overdue. I think it's a good move. But I think everyone has to make their move, not just because it seems to be the popular thing to do, but because there's something behind it. There's meaning to it. There's a respect that goes to it and a willingness to actually advance the agenda and make a difference. And so I'm really happy to endorse this.
Thank you. Mr. Teixeira, do we need a motion for this?
It wouldn't hurt, Your Worship.
Okay.
There's no harm in doing that.
Yeah, it would be a good record. Thank you. Councillor Dickard.
Yes, I was just going to say that I think, the points made by previous speakers there are certainly correct, and I support it as well.
Thank you. Councillor Fleet, then Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. I totally agree. I think I agree with my colleagues. I think it's the right thing to do, and I support it.
Thank you. Councillor Hawking.
Very appropriate and long overdue, and I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you. So moved by Councillor Hawking, seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Council. Item 4 on the agenda is delegations, and our first delegation, I have the privilege of presenting Hanover's 2021 Senior of the Year Award. Welcome, Linda Manchester.
Thank you.
I'm honored to recognize Linda as Hanover's Senior of the Year. Linda is a selfless volunteer. She generously gives the gift of time to provide support, assistance, and encouragement to many people. Linda is well known in Hanover. After Linda retired as the CEO of the Hanover Public Library, she immediately became a member of the Friends of the Library so she could continue to promote the importance of literature, education, and culture. Among other initiatives, Linda spearheaded a successful annual book sale, which raises funds for expanded programming at the library. Linda is a founding member of the Hanover Community Players. She was instrumental in promoting arts and culture in our community and fostering local talent. Linda also worked diligently behind the scenes as a volunteer in multiple capacities. The Grey Bruce Singers also benefit from Linda's significant contributions, as not only has she performed with the group, she also plays a supporting role in creating promotional materials and organizing the box office. As a member and treasurer of the Saugeen Field Naturalists, she promotes knowledge, awareness, and stewardship of the natural environment of the Saugeen watershed. Linda also serves as a member of the Kinghurst Forest Nature Reserve, which helps to preserve the natural history of our area. Until its recent closing, Linda was an important member and representative for St. James Anglican Church for many years. She is now a member of St. Matthew's Evangelical Lutheran Church and is offering her time, talents, and leadership to her church community. Linda, please know that we genuinely appreciate and value your commitment of time, support, and talent. We all benefit from your wisdom, your friendship, and experience. You make our community a better place to live. Along with our thanks, we are delighted to congratulate you on being selected as Hanover's Senior of the Year for 2021. Congratulations. And Vicki has a plaque that she's going to hold up and show you, and we will make sure that you receive that. And if you can see Vicki, there's just a bit of glare, but there's a nice certificate framed for you. And I just want to say thank you for all that you do. And if you'd like to say a few words, you're more than welcome, Linda.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much for the honor. It was a surprise and quite unexpected, but I really appreciate that. And again, just thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, everyone's clapping for you.
Yeah, I see that.
Okay, so our second delegation this evening is Mr. Carl Kuhnke. He's here to update us about Saugeen Hospice. Carl?
Thank you, Mayor and Council and Brian and Vicki for arranging this. I thought I'd talk to you tonight about the Walker and Clean Water Center, but maybe I shouldn't. So your time is appreciated. And on behalf of the 12 incorporators, and as of 4th of June, which I'll tell you about in a minute, the interim board of Saugeen Hospice Incorporated, this opportunity is amazing for us. We have 4 each of our founders and our interim board members from Hanover, South Bruce, and Walkerton. And your 4 are a stunning contribution to what we're going to do. You have a lawyer, Francis Joseph Hughes Gross, who spent 30 years in Australia with Parliament of Australia as a lawyer. He's also a theologian and volunteers at the residential hospice of Grey Bruce. You have, of course, with us Sandra Schreiner, who I can't keep up with. The most amazing fundraiser. Ed King, of course, retired teacher and Renaissance man of all trades. And then, of course, we also have an accountant, which is always valuable on a board of directors also in Elaine Burrow. So you're well represented, and they are doing yeoman's duty already with our group. We really just want to ensure that all of our support base is kept well informed. Some of you are on our distribution list, and we got a note out today to about 275 supporters that we now have by subscription only. If they don't want to be part of it, they just tell us to unsubscribe. and we've had a few of those. But we got a note out today to bring everyone up to date. And I just want to let you all know that we're working hard on this hospice closer to home, as I coined the term before we created our incorporated company, for Hanover, Brockton, and South Bruce, and the areas surrounding it, Chesley and Durham and all around there. We're incorporated as of June 4th. We just got our letters patent this afternoon. And when our note went out this morning, we hadn't got it, but we got it from LifeSo and LifeSo at 2 o'clock this afternoon, who've been doing our work for us. And we're proceeding immediately tomorrow with our charitable status application with the Canadian Revenue Agency. The land has been set aside by Brockton on the edge of Walkerton, in fact, kitty corner from the Clean Water Center. It has not been deeded or given to the residential hospice of Grey Bruce, and it is being set aside by council for now. It will not be deeded to anyone until they decide to do so, and it's about 3.5 acres. It was 4. The Bruce County actually came back and demanded a larger stormwater management pond about 2 months ago. So we're now down to about 3.5, which is still lots of land. We're not part of the regional hospice, residential hospice of Grey Bruce, as you've seen in the media this week, none of which we put in the media, but there have been some advertisements ensuring that people know we're not part of RHGB. We are not. We do not have an agreement with them. We hope someday to have an agreement with them. All we know is that we wish to get this hospice built down here for the people in our communities, much closer to where we live and where we thrive. And it's important to all of us. Kelly Fotheringham of Mildmay and I were on the board of Residential Hospice of Grey Bruce. And in March, when they took the decision to delay the build and the collection of donations for yet another year, Kelly and I, with the agreement of the board there, resigned from the board to start this group. So it is incorporated. It is Saugeen Hospice Inc. And I'm sure you all know it took us about 15 seconds to come up with the name. What ties us all together? And it's the Saugeen. And we hope you like our new logo, because it took about 8 of us to hack through about 42 different renditions, because we all have different opinions. And then we all agreed on the one we have. So we're happy to be here. There is a gap that is being created by the inability to donate for this hospice as of June 30th. And although that gap was not foreseen by us as the biggest stimulus to get us going, it certainly got us going. We expect, in an agreement that was done with RHGB before Saugeen Hospice existed, to set a record amount of donations this year for the so-called South Build. Will be over $100,000 for Golf for Hospice. Many of you may know, and that's tomorrow. I'm teeing off at 1. Anybody golfing? No? Oh, good. What time do you tee off? Warren, Harold?
I'm off at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, dear God.
I'm 9:45.
That's better.
Well, then I got lucky. I was to tee off at 1 with Lisa Thompson, who I know well. And as of an entire weekend of texting and talking with Lisa, as you all know, she has just been turned into for us here in this area, the most important cabinet minister in the Ontario government, which is the Minister of Agriculture. And she is tied up all this week in Toronto, staying in a hotel for briefings. Swearing in was Friday afternoon virtually, and she regrets not being able to join us tomorrow, but she is going to be an amazing supporter for this Saugeen Hospice of ours. She is strongly with us. She has participated in spite of her schedule, with all of our Zoom meetings to date. And the only thing I haven't asked her to do is be on the board, because I know it's a conflict of interest, but she's behind all of us. So just to let you know that. The thing is, as of June 30th, no one can donate to Southfield or Saugeen Hospice. The Residential Hospice of Grey Bruce Incorporated will not accept donations after the 30th of June. And they have given no date on when they will accept them. We expect to have our charitable status within 3 to 4 months. In the meantime, we'll be setting up a bank account now. We will ensure that anyone who donates, wishes to donate, Two, the Saugeen Hospice is well aware that we may not have our charitable status by December 31st, that we expect to, and they may not be guaranteed to get a tax write-off. But it does give individuals here a choice in donating to Chapman House in Owen Sound or the very Saugeen Hospice that we wish to build here for all of us. So I think I've probably covered off my 10 minutes. I do want to say in support of Hanover that your ratepayers have been extremely supportive of the financial proceeds going to the South, what was known as the South Build, and what we're now calling the Saugeen Hospice. There is well over 400,000 in the segregated account of RHGB, and a significant amount of that money came from Hanover. I can, without naming the number, I've got the note from Sandra. I know exactly how much she has collected herself individually over the last 3 years, and it's well in excess of $65,000 her alone, and going out and canvassing and getting pledges and getting sponsors. So I think I'll stop there. If you have time for questions, I'm happy to try and answer any, but thank you again for your time, and we will keep you all up to date.
Thank you, Carl. Are there any questions or comments about Saugeen Hospice? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. Carl, so is the kind of the vision going forward that Saugeen Hospice would kind of get an arrangement with the ministry to like the Saugeen Hospice would in essence run this hospice once it's up and going? And I think we know that hospice is underfunded from the ministry, and a lot of relies on donation. But is the idea that Saugeen Hospice would run this build once it's up and going?
Good question. Right now, the authority letter for a 6-bed hospice was granted to Residential Hospice of Grey Bruce, Inc. in May of 2019. That means that they have the commitment by the Ministry of Health for over $1 million in planning money. Our intent and what we're striving to do is to eventually have an agreement with RHGB so that we can collaborate on getting this built much faster than we could otherwise if it was in the hands of Owen Sound. I'm hoping that comes to pass. It's early days, but we will be pursuing, as Saugeen Hospice Incorporated, our discussions with the Ministry of Health and with the Government of Ontario. You may have seen the announcement on the weekend. Hospices are actually now a focus of the Government of Ontario. The announcement on the weekend by Doug Ford of the Education Village in Milton, about 4 blocks from where I used to live, by the CN property in the west end of Milton, actually had in the announcement that it will be a Schlegel long-term care home, 2 universities, well, one a community college, now a university, a long-term care home, assisted living, and a hospice. Knowledge of who's going to build that unknown, because right now hospices are built by private not-for-profit corporations and not by the Government of Ontario. It's something we'd like to keep because a residential hospice gets that non-institutional feeling when the community is involved. I really wouldn't like not long-term care, I really wouldn't like hospices to become simply a health ministry bureaucracy that they build, fund, and look after, because what we'll end up with is small long-term care homes. And I don't think that's what any of us want. So, but that's what we're striving toward, Brandon.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, thanks, Carl. Oh, Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you all, and I'll sign off.
Okay. You're too late.
That's fine. I'm fine.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on. Item 4.3, we have Grey County. We have Pat Hoy, who is the Director of Transportation, and Brian Plumstead, who is the Manager of Tourism. And they are here to talk to us about the Grey County Cycling and Trails Master Plan. Welcome, Brian and Pat.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you for your time this evening. Very tough act to follow, such an exciting project, but Pat and I will do our best to make our Cycling and Trails Master Plan come to life for you and certainly answer any questions you have. So I'm going to kick off the first couple of slides and really introduce this project. I think Mayor Patterson and Deputy Mayor Hicks have seen this several times at the County Council table. We've been working on the Cycling and Trails Master Plan just about 2 years now. We unfortunately took a real hiatus during COVID. We had just opened up a 30-day public comment period when COVID hit. So we really couldn't close that off until the fall of 2020. And then we brought it to council for their approval. So in this plan, there's 23 recommendations, and we'll highlight 6 of those later that we've highlighted as staff as key recommendations. And if we could move on to the next slide, Vicky. And even the next slide, let's go to number 3. So we really like to highlight that the Cycling and Trails Master Plan, I think of it like a toolbox. It's got a lot of very useful information, a lot of tools that Grey County and member municipalities can use when they're thinking about cycling and trails. But it is a very high-level document. It's a communications tool and a policy, a long-range policy for the next 10 years and even 30 years. It's not so much a feasibility study or a guideline for specific projects. So we really are bringing it to you today as a high-level policy document for your endorsement. So next slide, please. As we neared the end of our public comment period, and we did get a little pushback, I will say, from our trails community that felt that the plan really was focused on road cycling. And indeed, that was the design from the start, that it was really to provide a lot of guidance for on-road cycling across Grey County, which has become very busy in some of our municipalities. And we have so much potential for tourism routes and many routes across all of Grey County. So we did less work on the trails side. So we did highlight that at the beginning of the plan and be very clear about that. And we also changed one of the main recommendations, which was to create 2 separate committees or working groups, one to work on trails and off-road cycling, and one that would focus on on-road cycling. Next slide, please. So really the philosophy of the network, which is really kind of the essence of the plan, is that it would coordinate with capital projects. So our consultants spent a lot of time looking at our capital plans for the next 10 years and coordinating what routes would fit well with them. We also tried to look at quick wins where there might be gaps in the connectivity of the planned route and where we might be able to fill in little gaps in the network. And then finally, we wanted to enhance our county's cycling loops. We do have published tourism cycling routes that have been very popular. So we'd like to do some enhancements to those, particularly in signage. So I'll turn it over to Pat for the next few slides.
Yeah, so slide number 6. So as you can see, this is our preliminary preferred network. But as Brian said, with a living document, not totally sure exactly where all these projects are going to fall. We have a plan, but it's you know, up for other factors to be influenced. So I think it was important when we developed this network to try to get all active transportation involved. So you have the, you know, the cyclists in their group that are, you know, racers basically. You know, then you have you know, tourism people that come in big groups, and then just the family with their kids who might want to be, you know, on a lower volume road and aren't really necessarily going anywhere like you know, far away, but just want to get out and exercise, or maybe get into town to do you know, get an ice cream or something. So there's a large mix of that. The majority of the larger kind of paved shoulder jobs are on county roads, and a lot of the smaller lower volume roads would be assigned route, for example. Next page. Oh, I have mine on the screen here too, so I'm looking at both here. Okay. Yeah, so here's in and around Hanover. So as I said, even with this being a kind of a living document, you know, there's some things in here that we're not sure how they're going to implement them yet. This is kind of a large guideline. We're not committing, you know, it's not in our budget. It's not a whole bunch of funds to this yet. But there's some things in Hanover You know, the main drag, kind of right downtown, Grey Road 4, it's kind of hard to get a big cycling lane going through there. So we're kind of keeping them on lower volume roads if we can. But again, it's you know, there's a lot of town work here as well. We're not committing you to anything either, but it was a kind of group effort with the cycling folks and the public works folks and the political side, trying to figure out where we're going forward to increase our active transportation. Next page. So this is just a summary of what we're going to have in our system. A lot of paved shoulders, a lot of it, the lower volume routes, we're just going to sign. Kind of shying away from bike lanes in general. We usually kind of prefer the paved shoulder. The bike lanes just have all that extra paint and maintenance. There's winter maintenance on bike lanes now that's required. So we really do lean towards the paved shoulder, and that can be used for all modes of transportation, walkers, cyclists, or anybody. And there's even some buffered paved shoulders called for in the plan, which are basically kind of an offset, say with a meter in between the traveling car spot and the shoulder. So that is a struggle. We'll have to figure out how we're going to do that as far as money and budgeting and for Grey Road 4. It's kind of something we always wanted to figure out for the engineering folks. You know, we have a platform width. It's not really wide enough for a full paved shoulder for someone to ride a bike on, for example, or a bike lane. But so one of the things we wanted to find in the plan was just where the cyclists aren't necessarily, where maybe just a partially paved shoulder of a half a meter is enough because it's a low volume road and not going anywhere that active transportation is necessarily going. So that's something you'll see some roads not really included in the plan. And that was really by design, trying to find out, because we couldn't widen the platform on every road that we have. Some of the roads are lower volume and we weren't going to put major money into a road where people weren't going necessarily. Next page. As you can see, there's so we've already got quite a few paved shoulders in the county. We find a big difference in our maintenance on the paved shoulders. You'll see if you drive along the road, that white edge line, if it's got a fully paved shoulder, it doesn't seem to crack as much as the old gravel shoulder. So we have been finding decreased maintenance and saving money that way. And also that drop off at the edge of pavement is a main cause of accidents, that little drop off. So paved shoulders is very handy in keeping everybody safe. So a big mix of short and long-term goals here for different categories of stuff we're going to be doing. So they've phased it into 3 sections, kind of everything in our 10-year plan. Additional projects we added in the 10-year plan, and then phase 2, which is sort of the longer term projects outside of the 10-year plan. So again, open for discussion. Our capital 10-year, usually the first 5 years are pretty close to what we project. Year 5 to 10 is a little more free flowing. And when you get outside 10 years, they can change quite a bit, the projects. Next page. So even here in Hanover, for example, north of Grey Road 4 on Grey Road 28, which is, I think, is it 24th Ave? Is that what that is? It's in here that it's in phase 2. Well, now, Hanover wants to move that job up, and we're willing to do that too. So that even though it's shown in phase 2, we'll probably end up putting some active transportation accommodations in there in the next 5 years or 3 years, whatever. 2023 maybe it was in, I think. So yeah, this is kind of our preliminary network to get in and around Hanover, just to have one near the school and that type of thing. There is some struggles there in exactly how we're going to do some of these things, but that's our preliminary plan anyway at that point. Well, then I got this one. Brian's making me talk about all the money. So, so yeah, a lot of these things, I mean, it looks like a lot of money. But as I said, we were paving shoulders anyway with our county jobs, and we've been doing that for 5 or 6 years. So a lot of the signage is new. But again, Book 18 for cycling recommends a lot of measures like that to let motorists and cyclists know, it's a kind of a route. So anyway, this is an idea how much the plan costs, but a lot of it, like I said, it's not additional money per se.
Thanks, Pat. So as far as moving forward, we really have three main buckets we'll be working under. One is to establish 2 working groups, one for on-road cycling and one for off-road trails. And those working groups would be composed of a lot of the partners in the right-hand column, collaboration. So member municipalities,
So I think Brian's screen has frozen. If I'm correct there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can carry on for a bit here.
Okay.
He's right in Hanover. Isn't Hanover
Yes,
a super internet town?
it is.
He mustn't paid enough for his internet. Yeah, so as said, the working groups, the on-road cycling, off-road cycling. I know from our point of view, because we get a lot of calls from cyclists, it's going to be nice to have the working group. It seems like it's going to be addition. You know, your first instinct is it's additional work, right? One more group to meet with. But for me, it's very nice to kind of have one point of contact. Let's figure out as a group, you know, where we want to, what projects are a priority. Because some people feel, and we all know some of those cyclists, and they feel that every project is the biggest priority, right? Other members wouldn't want to see any. So it's kind of nice to have the working group and collaboration. So as you see, all our partners here, and we've all, you know, we've heard back that, you know, you cannot consult enough. Everybody would like their say in the plan, but you know, at some point it is one of those things where we talk to as many people as we can, but at some point a decision has to be made and everyone won't be happy, but we're going to do our best to work as a team. And funding is the same thing. This is not committing you to any funding. You know, we're going to keep going on our funding and trying to do as many of these projects as we can and applying for grants and that type of thing. And I think it's in everyone's interest to increase active transportation from a health point of view and all those kind of things. So these were the priority recommendations. That it was just a guide to future design. So that's basically something right away. County staff developing a wayfinding strategy, which we've finished a report on that, and we have to take a report to our committee about wayfinding. This is a big one too. This is the big public works question that I know my friends at all the member municipalities run into. You just don't want to see, like, risk with cycling is kind of a big deal, right? They're not insured. They don't necessarily have a license. You don't need to show that you're competent on a bike to get on a bike and drive around. So we're always worried about, I know people are worried about directing cyclists somewhere. Like, I don't want to direct them because then it's, you know, if it's the road's not safe, is the county or the town going to be in a liability position? Our feeling is just that we know cyclists are there. We know they're out and about. We're going to try to do whatever we can to make things safer and better for them, along with everybody else. So we don't think we're really increasing risk by showing that we're trying to protect them. And then the phasing plan should be adopted by county council as a guide. And the 2 working groups that are getting, I think Brian's working on that piece right now to try to get the working groups going. And then, of course, we should explore external funding, which the cycling trails plan did kind of come out of the commuter cycling, which I believe we spent money in Hanover on that commuter cycling grant as well. So that was, we had to have a bike plan as part of that funding. So, but actually they let us do it after, which is odd, but it all worked out. So now this is done. Next page. And here's the next step. Yeah, so county council approving it as a policy document. We want to identify projects, and we're going to continue to identify projects, of course. Continue to engage with the member municipalities and reach out to our key stakeholders and formalize partnerships to facilitate implementation. So these next 2 slides are sort of a rehash of the earlier. As you can see, there's a various treatments in and around Hanover and in town, some buffered bike lanes, a lot of signed routes, it really would have been nice. I know we had a lot of discussion about Hanover to Durham, how busy Gray Road 4 is. And it really would have been nice to have, you know, like an off-road rail trail type thing. And there is a rail trail there, but it wasn't kept together and there's pieces missing. And oh, Brian's back, I see. Actually, this is my slide anyway, so I'll finish the next one. And there again is kind of the route in Hanover. It has a few struggles, things we'll have to figure out as far as if we wanted to put bike lanes in certain spots. There is a lot of signed routes. Hanover does have a lot of very wide streets that are pretty much perfect for cycling. So that shouldn't be too hard from Hanover's point of view to do a lot of this work either. Hey, Brian.
Thank you. Sorry about that. We dropped the connection, but we're back. So this slide shows some of the tourism routes in and around Hanover. What we call the Saugeen Tri-50K is a great route that heads north out of Hanover. And this is one that probably could use some realignments. I think the local Tri Club is suggesting we might move it off Gray Road 3 going north. And maybe we could duck into town through the Morrow Lakes and not have to go on Gray Road or Bruce Road 4 outside of town. There's also the Saugeen River Ramble, which is a pretty long 96-kilometer run all through the sort of the back roads of Saugeen country to the east and south of Hanover. And then just to the south, the Neustadt Country Road Loop, which finishes off at Neustadt Springs Brewery, which is always a nice place to do. So that's another route. And then Allen Park, of course, just to the east is a favorite for off-road riding as well. So Hanover's got some great routes around it. If we go to the next slide. So really a lot of the implementation on municipal roads is really just signage. It's fairly simple as putting up signed routes. So in Hanover, in the plan, there's about 14 kilometers of signed routes and 5 kilometers of existing routes. We're proposing 2 types of signage. One is a little more colorful and branded for our tourism routes, such as the blue and white signage you see on the left. And it would be more directional. The secondary type is really the Ministry of Transportation standard signage for cycle routes. It's green and white sign with the bicycle on it. So that would go wherever there isn't a signed tourism route. And then there's also supplementary signage such as Share the Road. And that's really put up to highlight to vehicles that there are cyclists on the road or other road users. And I believe there has been some interest in Hanover in that kind of signage. So we certainly can make that available. And then the standard is in urban areas every 400 to 800 meters and in rural areas every kilometer. So the good news is actually a lot of the costs in our plan are going to come down. The consultant gave us costs of $1,000 a kilometer, and we're looking at more like between $200 and $400 per kilometer. So I think that's the really good news. So for instance, in Hanover, the estimated cost of a sign is around $80. And then it's really just some staff time if municipal staff or county staff can put it up. So good news on the cost side that we really can bring it down. Next slide, please. So I think this is back to Pat to finish this out.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so these are the county's request. The town endorsed the county's cycling plan. And as it says here, again, it doesn't commit you to funding. It's not saying you're going to carry out all these projects in a limited time. It's just as a high level plan that you believe in kind of what we're bringing forward. Next. Gray County will identify projects as part of the annual review projects or budget process. So we always do that. We always kind of go over our projects in the budget every year. We'll continue to engage in consultation engagement with the member municipality stakeholders and residents. So we're always doing that when we're working in the urban areas anyway, is working with the local staff. and then to reach out to key stakeholders and formalize partnerships and develop those working groups.
Okay, so are there questions or comments to Brian or Pat? Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Brian and Pat, for this report. Just a concern and a question, like liability for the municipality. I just don't know where you're going to be going with that. Like, who's liable? Will it be the municipality or will it be the county? A concern I have, and the other concern I have with your bike lane, will it be shared with walkers? If it's not, like, how do you say a walker can't be on a bike lane? I just asking that question.
Pat?
Yeah, I'll answer I guess, as I said, we're kind of doing our best to try to, mitigate any liability by kind of giving cyclists a safe place to travel. As being a paved shoulder, it is really for everybody. Bike lanes, now in town, you could probably do the bike lane and then you have a sidewalk anyway, and pedestrians are normally the town responsibility, but in the rural, we kind of feel that we kind of want to provide some spaces for them. So that's kind of, but as far as liability, I know we struggle with it too. We end up in court a lot fighting cases where clearly doesn't seem like it's the county's fault. But the lawyers don't necessarily think that, or they have a reason for not thinking that. So we are doing our best to mitigate all those concerns. Sorry, what was the second part of the?
You're on mute, Harold. Sorry, Councillor Fleet.
Sorry about that.
Sharing the lane with walkers, your bike lanes, I'm sure, is it shared between walkers and bikers, or is it strictly for cyclists?
Yeah, in the rural, well, typically a paved shoulder, it could be for anybody that wants to be there, really. So.
Alrighty, thank you.
It's for all. So, Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. My son just recently completed university in Ottawa, and I noticed in that particular region, there are a lot of, seems like, community partnerships with individual businesses that maybe sponsor a kilometer of trails or something of that nature. Do you envision something of that nature in this area?
Certainly possible, if I can jump in on that one. Really, I think that's sort of the idea behind the working groups, is to really get a lot more community participation and buy-in. A lot of the bike stores are very supportive, very interested. A lot of clubs, and the triathlon club in Saugeen certainly seems very interested. So absolutely, we could look to those kinds of models. And even Blue Mountain Village seems to be very interested in assisting, because they're a very busy spot, but they know a lot of people love to go out and hike trails in the area, so that they're quite interested in being a corporate sponsor as well. So yes, would be the answer.
Good. Councillor Dickert.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the report. Cycling certainly has become a very popular pastime, and it certainly fits in with the encouragement of more physical activity by everybody. And I know that even years ago, when they were doing it in Blue Mountains, Grey Road 19 there, they added the bike lanes, and I think it was a very popular addition. So I think it fits well with our destination, our desire to be a destination. And if people are coming in by bicycle or whatever, I think there's obviously a few things that need to be refined yet in the process, but I support the concept, and I think it is good to have in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Dickert. Deputy Mayor Hicks, then Councillor Cable.
Sorry, me first. Thank you for that. Brian, I wonder if you might speak a little bit about some of the data from an economic development point of view, why it makes sense to invest in cycling and why it makes sense to promote Grey County as a cycling destination. Do you have any of those figures handy?
Well, we haven't done a survey for a couple of years. I think the last one was the end of 2019. And we certainly see growth in cycling as a destination in Grey County. I think a lot of people who have second homes here are probably the biggest folks we see out in the roads regularly, especially in the Blue Mountains area and around Owen Sound. But also there's a very active group in Southern Grey, Durham, Hanover, the Tri Club here. So it's both, I think, a benefit to a quality of life, but it's also a very important economic benefit. And more of our accommodators are seeing cyclists come. And I think as we build the infrastructure, we'll also see more folks come, particularly for coming to ride for a weekend. As Pat said, families, I think, are the huge market that we're maybe not quite attracting as much as we could. We have a lot of the fearless men and women in spandex who are out there riding around, but we're such a great family destination that I think if we have more rail trails, more quiet country roads to cycle on, we'll see more families and more of them spending money. So I don't have a firm number, but we do track sort of volume of people. And I think we're up a good 30% in cycling year over year and in trails as well. 2020 over 2019 was a huge spike in people coming to our area and locals getting out and using trails and cycling.
And Your Worship, if I might, this is a perfect segue to a little bit of promotion. For anyone interested in cycling, you should probably check this out. It's Grey County's Cycling Routes. It's a wonderful brochure. And you can look up in this brochure. By the way, Brian, will you make sure that there are some of these available? They may already be available at the library, but that might be a good place to pick it up. If you're thinking about cycling in Grey County, this little map here is what you want, because I think it's just excellent. You can choose your route by area. You can also choose by level of difficulty and what kind of terrain you want to see, right? So I've used this map myself, and I just think that this is just an excellent thing to explore our area, to explore the beauty that we have here, and to see some sites that honestly you wouldn't ordinarily see. Maybe you don't have the time that it would take to walk some of these trails, but on a bicycle, great family activity, and you can check out Grey County. So look out for these brochures in the library. They're really, really great. Sorry, I had to promote.
No problem. Thank you. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Brian and Pat. I think it's great to see the blueprint come forward. I was really impressed by the emphasis on education and cycling awareness. I think that education component is certainly a huge piece in building awareness in that safe cycling community. One suggestion I would have is to really keep in touch with Saugeen Triathlon Club. They're certainly a really active part of our community, and in discussions, even over this past weekend, queuing up to your presentation, they had some excellent suggestions, even as far as routes in Hanover are concerned, and kind of looking at, what are those attractions that we want to send people to, or with our work on a destination center of excellence park coming up, how do we build that into the cycling plan? So they had some excellent suggestions. And would you know, Brian, as far as timing goes, where would we expect the share the road signs to come in Hanover? I know it's something that the Triathlon Club has been working on for a few years, and I think they're really just trying to create awareness about cycling and trying to create some safety in that regard.
That would probably be a Pat question, as I guess there's both county roads and municipal roads. So maybe I'll turn that one over to Pat.
Yeah, we'll probably, yeah, we haven't really got in exactly all our signage routes. I mean, our routes are in here, but we don't know exactly the schedule for all of them. But no, that's good information. We can work on trying to get something up sooner rather than later, maybe at least in some parts of Hanover, to try to get the awareness out there. There's a lot of people here that, are out and about. So I think we can.
Well, that's awesome. Good. I'm sure that they would be willing partners and great resource for sure.
Great. Can I just check, Brendan? I've been communicating a little bit with Danica. Is she a good person to connect through to the
yes,
Triathlon Club?
Yeah, definitely a great resource. Great. And then she's also part of our Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. So excellent resource for sure.
And I will follow up with her. Yeah. Thank you.
Pat, you can put us down as a pilot project. Hanover likes to be a pilot project in quite a few initiatives. So
you have been for the county. Yes, that's right.
Okay, could I, Deputy Mayor Hicks?
I'm very sorry, Your Worship. I missed one little piece in my little commercial there. But there is a website that people can go to, visitgray.ca. So visitgray.ca/cycling. So visitgray.ca/cycling, and you're going to get a pile of information there about what Gray County is doing with respect to cycling. I'll end there, I promise.
Thank you. So could I get a mover and seconder to endorse the master plan as presented? So I have Councillor Dickert and Councillor Cable. All in favor? That's carried. So thank you very much, Pat and Brian. Appreciate the presentation and the update and information. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your evening.
Thanks.
All right, item 5 on the agenda is council and committee of the whole minutes. The first one, 5.1, is our regular council meeting from May the 17th. I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Fleet. You'll remember that evening we had a delegation from the Deep Geological Repository. That group presented their concerns about that repository going in. We also approved the disposal of surplus assets, and we had a compensation and benefits market survey that Melissa Hilgendorf, our HR coordinator, presented about selection of municipal comparators. And I'll just ask Mr. Teixeira, is there any information to report on the disposal of the assets?
Sure. So, Your Worship, further to that report, there was a number of items that were listed with Gov Deals, and pleased to report that a number of those items have closed. The bidding was good. However, there was also a number of items that were not bid on. Diffuser vents, light fixtures, paper towel dispensers. So we made the decision, Your Worship, to talk to the Restore, and the Restore was more than happy to take those, and they'll sell them to whoever at some point. The firefighter equipment has just been posted on Gov Deals, so it hasn't closed yet. So it's all in process.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. So that's just a few highlights. I'll call the question. If there's nothing further, all in favor of those minutes? That is carried. Thank you. Item 5.2, that is the public meeting minutes from May 25th. And that was the meeting we held to consider Hanover's options for growth. And we received quite a few comments and letters. So I appreciate and thank everyone that participated, whether it was through the meeting or through letters. Good information that was received. So I'll take a mover and seconder for those minutes. Councillor Dickert and Deputy Mayor Hicks. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 5.3 is special council meeting minutes from June the 7th. That was a closed meeting, so I'll just take a mover and seconder for those minutes. Councillor Hawking and Councillor Cable. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 5.4 is committee of the whole meeting minutes from June the 7th. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Fleet. That evening, we appointed 2 people, Krista LaSauvage and Jen Olivero, to the Board of Management for the Hanover Downtown Improvement Area, known as DIA. We also heard April Marshall, our Economic Development Officer, talk to us about the Saugeen Student Startup Program, which seems to be going very well. And we approved our official plan amendment number 3. So that was good to get that done. So if there's no comments or questions, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 6 is staff reports. And the first report is CAO 1021. It's from Mr. Teixeira, our CAO clerk. And I need a mover and seconder to put it on the floor before Brian highlights his report. Councillor Cable and Deputy Mayor Hicks. Brian, all yours.
Thank you, Worship. So this is an update with respect to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Agreement and municipal appointments. So as Council recalls, back in January 2019, there was new amendments to the Police Services Act that mandated municipalities prepare a community safety and well-being plan by January 1st of 2021. That deadline has since been extended, naturally because of COVID-19. However, the committee has continued to meet, and as of December 7th, 2020, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan was received and endorsed, was completed, received and endorsed by the town of Hanover, and it's attached to this report. Since that time, the following actions and milestones have occurred. So first of all 16 participating municipalities have approved the plan by resolution. The plan was presented to the Grey Bruce Public Health Board. It's also been presented to various police services boards as requested. The original coordinator, Sarah Cowley, has taken a new position. So I'm pleased to say that a new coordinator has been appointed, Tanya Roberts, and she's on an 8-month contract, and that commenced on May 1st. An important development is that the advisory committee assumed oversight of the Grey Bruce Situation Table for Acute Response, otherwise known as STAR. And that was based on recommendations of the former STAR committee, steering committee. I'll get into that a little bit later. So round 2 of the community engagement survey was also posted and for a period of 6 weeks. And the purpose of this was to better understand perceptions with respect to the pandemic. The first round survey was completed in mid-March 2020, and that was right about the time when COVID started to take traction in around the world, particularly in Canada. Also, the action table assessment tool and stakeholder engagement is in process of being developed. And also the committee has completed and released an indicator report, which has also been attached to this report. And finally, as part of the municipal agreement with the completion of the plan and move into the action or implementation stage, a new agreement has been developed. And again, we will be seeking council's approval of that agreement tonight. With the completion of the plan, the advisory committee has been reviewing the structure as it relates to the implementation phase. So we're now at the point where we're going to actually start implementing the plan. It's been agreed that a reworked STAR situation table will assume oversight of the implementation of the plan. STAR provides a multi-sectoral risk intervention model for situations of acutely elevated risk and mobilizes existing resources to mitigate the risk. And how STAR will work, or how the situation table will work, I think is pretty clearly outlined in the plan as well as the indicator report. And we can get into answering questions along those lines. Any initiatives, tasks, projects that support the plan, specifically at the local and municipal level, will remain with the municipality that is delivering these projects. Likewise, any initiatives that support the plan, specifically at an organizational level, will remain with the organization that is currently delivering those projects. The collaborative and the coordinator will provide support to the local municipalities in their own assessments of which actions are of priority in a community, and to offer a space for a community of practice. In other words, opportunities for sharing best practices. The revised agreement will require that council appoints new members to the advisory committee. The Police Services Board has already appointed Chief Knoll at their May 17th meeting. Council's been asked to appoint a representative of the municipality at tonight's meeting. With respect to the financial implications for the next phase, Bruce County is contributing $10,000, and each municipality in Bruce County will be contributing $5,000. Whereas in Grey County, the county will be contributing the contributions of all municipalities up to $55,000. With respect to the length of the strategic plan, this supports basically all of our strategic plan initiatives, with respect to economic development, community, and sustainable municipal operations. So the recommendation is as follows: that CAO 1021 Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Agreement and municipal appointments being received, that Hanover Police Chief Chris Dole and someone else from the municipality be appointed as the town of Hanover's representatives on the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Advisory Committee. That bylaw number 3094-20, which is the former Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Municipal Agreement, be repealed, and that a bylaw be introduced at this meeting authorizing the execution of a revised municipal agreement between the County of Grey, the County of Bruce, and the 16 participating local municipalities as listed in the agreement.
Thank you, Brian. So do we have a member of council that's interested in joining this advisory committee? Councillor Dickert?
Yes, Your Worship. I had spoken to Brian about this over the last month or so. I did attend the last Community Safety Wellbeing Plan meeting. I've completed the situation table training modules through the Wilfrid Laurier University. And I've also got a fair bit of experience after my 10 years on the Hanover Police Service Board that kind of, I think, fits well into this this work. So I am interested if I would have the support of my fellow councillors to serve as that representative.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dickert. I think you'd be a very good representative. So any other comments? I'm sure I see nodding heads. Council's in agreement. So we'll insert Councillor Dickert's name in that motion. And are there any questions or comments for Brian before we vote on this? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say that, people have taken different approaches across the province, but I really love what we've done here in Grey and Bruce because we've taken a collaborative approach. We've got buy-in. I forget, was it 72 organizations that participated in this process? So to me, that's exactly what has been called for in the past. Frankly, I think it positions us well for funding opportunities because we know that the province and the feds really like when people are working together and they like to fund collaborative projects. And this is certainly in that mold. So I'm really excited about this plan. I'm also excited that it's coming out at the same time as the rollout of our age-friendly plan, because there is a connection here between community safety and well-being and the age-friendly plan. By the way, age-friendly is something that the county is looking to Hanover for leadership on because Hanover is years ahead of everyone else. So congratulations to Sherry and that crew in that light. So wonderful plan, love the collaboration, the timing is great. And I'm glad to hear that we've got a new coordinator in place. We were very lucky to have Sarah while we had her, but she's on to bigger and better things with the wine. And that's it.
Thank you. And just to say, Councillor Dickert also sits on our age-friendly committee. So there's another plus for us. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make a comment that this is a noble undertaking. And I would think that we would move forward in small steps because it's going to be an awesome task. And I hope the person is very successful in coordinating 16 different municipalities and 72 other groups. So cherish the moment, work closely, and don't get discouraged because it's going to be like herding cattle sometimes when you've got everybody coming from sort of I mean, the focus is singular, but we all have our different ideas. So congrats to all the municipalities that came together and to the groups that support this noble venture. Good luck.
Thank you.
And thanks to Warren for volunteering. He'll be an excellent asset on this committee. Well done, Warren.
Yes. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of report CAO 1021? That's carried. Thank you. Item 6.2 is report DCS 1321. The subject is the Theater Community Hall renovation tender. It's from Chris Walker, our Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer. I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Hawking. Chris, all yours.
Thank you, Worship. I also have online here Paul Sequinza and Deb Westman from Plus VG, in case there's some questions that comes up after the report, because as you know, I'm the treasurer, I'm not an architect or a contractor. So they'll be able to explain that a little better than I can. So a little background, at the December 7th Committee of the Whole meeting, Paul from Venting Group presented an overview of their findings of the Theatre Community Hall structure. And at that same meeting, I had provided a report to Council, and this project was to be included as part of our 2021 budget deliberations. Council may remember that we did do the budget deliberations, and then on January 11th, 2021, the budget was approved. It was noted, however, during the budget deliberations that this project was to proceed to tender, and upon receipt of these tenders, the council decision with regards to the next steps for this project would occur. It was noted at that time that the impact of the 21 capital operations budget would not affect the taxes until the following year, once the loan has been borrowed. And at that time, we had suggested giving you a round figure, if you were to borrow 1.5 million at a 2% interest rate, what those yearly costs would be. So the tender was advertised in the Post and on Badingo, as well as on the town's website. And we received 2 tenders by the closing time of 2 p.m. on Friday, June the 11th. They were Zettel Fisher Contracting Limited with a tender price of $2,731,866. And the other contractor was Dom Construction at $2,770,000, less than $39,000 between the two of them when on the bid. So these bids include a contingency allowance of $150,000, as well as $556,000 in cash allowances. I've given you a table on that report that shows you the different allowances, and the approximate amounts were provided by our architects, where they figured that the amount would add up to $556,000. Again, those items are building abatement, inspection and testing, finished hardware, theater equipment, roof inspection, interior signage, and communication voice data. Now, these cash allowances are specific to the project, but where costs could not be determined at the time of the tender. That's why they were put in and said you would have to have this amount as part of your base price. These allowances will vary in price, as it will be dependent on our requirements for some of these items, such as theater equipment. So as you can see on that one part, theater equipment says $450,000. There's a possibility we could have a lot bigger savings there by the types of things that we actually choose to put in there, such as the type of curtains, the rigging, if we do with automatic versus manual, those kind of things. And staff feel that there could be some savings in these allowances, as we know already, just switching from the automatic to the manual rigging would save about $85,000 to $90,000 right there. Plus VG has reviewed the tenders and noted that most of the building renovations are upgrades that address our interior building code requirements for the building performance, health and life and safety accessibility. These items cannot be deleted or easily phased since they are interconnected with the construction scope. Other comments that they provided and recommendations were for cost reductions. Typically, costs are reduced by deleting work or scope, so that would be more in the cash allowance area that we had talked about. Phasing could occur, however, the costs over the long run do tend to be higher because of the overlap of work. You could retender, but with the market conditions driving costs up, there is no guarantee or likelihood, in their opinion, that costs will be lower in the future. Typically, prices continue to increase at a slower rate at best. And Plus VG also noted that the market conditions have seen a huge pressure and challenge, including unprecedented inflation on material and labor costs due to current market conditions. they have seen an average of 30% minimum. So you may remember back in December, we looked at approximately a $2 million project. So 30% on that alone is 600,000, just because of the major impact and pressures. We've also received notification from local contractors that the price for drywall is up 65%, and the price of steel, which we all know of as well, with our other construction project that underdid, was up 55% as of March. Plus BG tender review letter was attached to this report so that you can read it. I thought it was easier if I put it in my report, some of the highlights on it, so that you didn't have to go back and forth between each report. So the financial implications of this is that we'd originally put in the budget about 1.863 based on the preliminary amounts that were provided back in November and December when it was presented to council. And it was estimated that we'd have some money for the modernization funding. So if this project is to proceed as tendered, the funding recommendation is as follows. The modernization funding right now has approximately 421,000. So I'm assuming 400,000. We have applied for the RED grant funding based on the functional items that were provided in that report. So based on 625,100, that was the functional amount, we are eligible possibly for up to 30%. So this is a fingers crossed, hope we can get this money, 187,500. We've also received notification from the government that they're doing a one-time top up for 2021 on our gas tax. So we are anticipating to get an additional $234,000 that was not budgeted for. We had no idea it was coming. Our original amount for 2021 is $243,000 for the AMO gas tax, and we have received that already. And the Hanover community players, fingers crossed again, they're going to try to put in an application with the Community Foundation Ray Bruce. They're just doing the intent. I put in that amount of 55,000 because they were looking at the rigging above the stage as well as the curtains for the amounts that they were trying to go after. And that amount was about 55,000. So there's two amounts in there that I can't guarantee that we will get some money. The only ones I know of for sure would be the modernization funding and the AMO gas tax that is coming. Council may remember in our gas tax, we have a project for 377,000 coming out of that for 14th Ave. That would leave us with another 170,000 left, plus this 234,000. So if we needed more funds, we could also use additional money from AMO gas tax as well. Then the other part would be the long-term debt financing. So I rounded up to 2 million just because of HST, other ins and outs, and whether we get some of this funding or not. So in the past, our criteria for even going for long-term debt would be that our municipal share of the project had to be at least $500,000. With the exception of land, you'd have to have a useful life on the asset greater than 5 years. I'm assuming this would be 80 plus years. So definitely we fall within that 5 years. The project has been approved by council as part of our annual capital budget, and it has been in 2021. And debt is to be structured in a way that is fair and equitable. So basically, if we put the amount of debt on the property, those that are using it in the future will also be paying towards the asset as well. It's not all people who are in the town today have to pay the full price for it. It would be leveraged over the years for everybody to pay for it. And the funding cannot be accommodated within our tax rate or user rate supported budget. And as I've shown you before, we are applying for government grants. We're trying to get as much as we can. But again, we're at the cost of doing business and construction. And I attached to this report as well our 2021 annual repayment limit. And this is a report that's provided by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and it's based on our financial information return. And it was based on our 2019 information that was submitted to them last year. And they basically say all your regular revenue, that is your own source revenue, not grants, not any other funding. It's basically money that the municipality brings in. You have the ability to borrow up to 25% of your own revenue. So as you can see from that annual repayment limit, we have the ability to spend $3,789,000 a year just in debt and interest payments, but nobody wants to be that high. And then we had already an amount in there. So based on the amount that we currently have in there, we would still have an amount of $3.5 million that we could repay on a yearly basis. To date, with the amount of $259,779 based on our principal and interest that we pay currently, and based on our own source revenue, according to the ARL, we are at 1.71%, well under the 25% amount that the government allows any municipality to borrow. Staff, however, have always used the information that we don't want to be anywhere over 10%, if at all possible, for the municipality. And I have provided a listing of you to our municipal council members, as well as on this report, of all our internal borrowing that we have within our municipality, as well as our external borrowing, which at the current time is only the P&H Center. So based on all of that put together, we would be at about a 2.26 right now, because we are including our internal borrowing, but the government does not include that amount because it's within our own revenue and reserves where we pay each other back and forth. So they don't recognize that as actual debt. So the current rates through the Infrastructure Ontario, which is a government facility that allows borrowing for debentures, just for debentures, so you don't have to put your asset up as collateral or anything. They basically give you money because you're a municipality. They have different rates, and I've given you some terms there, 5 up to 30 years. These rates were as of June 1st. They have, however, changed. They are starting to go up. So we're starting to see an increase on some of these rates. What Infrastructure Ontario differs from, say, going to a bank is that when you lock in with Infrastructure Ontario, you are locked in for the whole term. So if you want a 20-year term, you cannot pay it off earlier. You cannot do anything else. You're locked in, but you get that rate for the whole 20-year period. That's the difference, other than what we've done in the past, when we go to a bank, say we want a 20-year amortization, but we do a 5-year term like most people do with the mortgages and renew it every 5 years so that you can put money down if you wish to do that. Infrastructure Ontario gives us the ability, because if you don't think you're going to have the monies to start paying it down, this is where you can lock in long-term rates. So if we were to borrow $2 million in long-term debt funding based on the rates of a 20-year term, it would be approximately $130,241 a year for the return of that. So it's about a 1.77% increase to our levy. Remember, our levy, every 1% is equal to $73,582. So we will continue to investigate other funding and grant opportunities. We were notified late 2020 that there was going to be a great big community building fund going to come here for us, going through Ontario Trillium Foundation. And right now the capital stream is not out. It's only operations. So I have to wait until that happens. So hopefully it'll occur that we can get moving on that one, but it doesn't look promising that it's going to come out till at least late fall, if it does at all this year. So the link to the strategic plan is all of the directions: regional center, economic development, our community, as well as sustainable municipal operations. So I think we've given you lots of details. So I thought I'd bring it back to you. I've given you a detail on all our loans, the external loans. If we were to, I think the mayor wanted me to acknowledge that we've had loans in the past at any one time. We used to have the medical clinic, the Heritage Square, and then the P&H Center. So at one time we've been as high as $569,000 a year in repayments just for external loans. So adding this amount on, as well as, I know you were thinking in the back of your mind, a future fire hall. If it was to be another $3 million, you're probably looking at another $200,000. I did the quick calculation, putting the P&H Center, the theater, as well as a fire hall, we would still be under $56,000 from our highest amount that we've ever paid in the past on a yearly basis, if that puts any of your mind at ease about borrowing externally. So that should be it, Mayor, unless there was something else. I guess I should ask for the recommendation is that you accept this report, DCS 13-21, that the project be awarded to Zettel Fisher Contracting for a total cost of $2,731,866 plus HST, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into a contract with Zettel Fisher Contracting, and further that financing this project, including directing staff to commence debenture financing with Infrastructure Ontario for up to $2 million, be as outlined in this report. Again, that's an option that you may want us to investigate that. We won't follow through until we're ready to get the funding, because they won't give us the rate until it's truly you need that millions of dollars. And at that point, council may decide that, maybe a loan with a bank with a 5-year term might be better. Same 20-year amortization, but have the ability for flexibility moving forward.
Thanks, Chris. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. Chris, as we know, the P&H Center was the result of 2 different building projects. One we called the Aquatic Center. I think it opened in 1993 or 95, I forget, 20 some years ago. And then we did the arena portion. Is there any outstanding money tied to the aquatic center in the P&H
No.
Center? So there was that ever debentured? The aquatic center?
I did not see any recollection of that in my files. It was my understanding that when they built the aquatic center, it was all pay as you go. And then there was a lot of capital projects that were not done on public works. And then they did that same approach when they did the community center or the civic center library area in
Okay.
1996. But when it came out in 2002, when they were looking at the medical clinic, then it started going, we can't continue to finance pay as you go.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Fleet, then Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. The renovations to the theater are necessary and long overdue. Given the money going into the upgrades, I think we have to be very proactive in renting and the facility and using it to its potential. Promotion and usage of the space will be a key to justifying the cost, I think. With culture being one of our focuses, bringing people to our community, I think the upgrades at the hall will go a long way in making this happen. But then I also think of, we've got the water tower, the new fire hall, police station upgrades, and the unknown. So there's a lot to think about here. So that's my take on it.
Thank you.
If I,
Chris,
Your Worship, if I could answer Harold Fleet or Councillor Fleet, sorry. With regards to the water and wastewater, you have to remember that has nothing to do with taxes. That is all user fee based. So that is
Right.
totally different from the tax-based side of things.
All righty. Thank you.
any other questions? Councillor Fitzsimmons. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cable.
Thank you. Councillor Cable's in for speaking.
Yes, he is. Sorry, Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have to agree with Councillor Fleet. I think it'll be really important after this project's completed to look at how we market this space and how do we get it used, get more use out of the theater. But one thing I'm hoping that can be clarified in the December presentation, we talked about the roof requiring replacement within 5 years. And in the cash allowance, I see a roof inspection and repair. But then there's a reference in the vent notes about a 60 versus 115 fully adhered roofing system. So can we just clarify if the tender includes replacement of the roof?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, I heard council loud and clear. If we're going to do the renovation, why are we just doing pockets of it? So it was, let's do the roof all at the same time.
So the only thing it doesn't include is the stairs.
The front entrance stairs, yes.
Front entrance stairs. Okay.
We did receive quotes on those and they range between 19,000 to 50,000. So that's something, depending on possible financing we receive, that we could look at adding on if that's something council wanted.
Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. This theater is the crown jewel and the heart and soul of our arts community and allows these groups to thrive. This investment will secure its place for the next 40 to 50 years, maybe even a little longer, and allow our community to leverage it to also enhance our economic development initiatives. I believe this should be amortized over 20 years so that the users of tomorrow can share in the cost of the venue of today. So my vote is to allow for this tender to be accepted and make this investment for people to enjoy this facility for the next 50 years.
Thank you. Councillor Hawking. You're on mute.
My first time, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Fitzsimmons couldn't have said it better. I totally endorse what he was saying. This is long time coming. I'm absolutely ecstatic that we got to this point. I remain optimistic that this place will become our jewel. It is our jewel, but it'll become a hub as we move forward in our cultural roundtable and our activities surrounding the arts. I support the 20-year debenture as well. I've been involved with other capital projects in the town of Hanover. We wouldn't have those projects if we didn't do things this way. So again, thanks to everyone. And a special thanks for Councillor Fitzsimmons, who articulated the position so well. So I stand in favor of the tender as stated.
Okay. Councillor Dickert, then Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm also supportive of moving ahead with this project. I think it is a very important piece of our town. Two questions I do have, though. I think, Chris, you may be related to, you said a renovation of this nature likely has about did you say 80-year life expectancy?
Well, our project for this building is usually 80 to 100 years for these types of buildings, like a municipal building. We tend to use it for 80 to 100 on our asset management plan. Doesn't mean that the roof doesn't have to be done in 30 years and the equipment doesn't have to be replaced, but we're talking about the whole structure of the building. Council may remember, I don't know if you all do remember, but back in, I think it was 95, 96, when they did the Civic Center Library, they opted not to do the community hall and the theater at that time because of money. And now we're back to stage one. We probably could have got it done for a lot less back then than we are getting it done today. So every time we delay, this is what happens. Prices continue to go up. And we know that because they were using the pay-as-you-go model back in the day.
Okay. The other question I had was, will there be a component of this that's supported under local fundraising, or is that not part of the plan?
I haven't talked about fundraising. However, I'm hoping maybe the Cultural Roundtable is hopefully on board with something like that, since we've got a really good fundraiser, Mr. Hawking. There. I myself don't have the time to do the undertaking for fundraising for this, but definitely that would be something that could be looked at to help offset. As I've said, the Hanover community players are trying to do their part by trying to apply for different funding as possible to assist us. Again, it's application only right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Hicks, then Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. For a number of years now, Hanover has been talking about culture, and there's been kind of this evolution within the economic development team, and culture has slowly crept its way in. It's had a lot of talk, and I would say, let it be said that Hanover is putting its money where its mouth is. So this is good news for culture in Hanover. At the risk of sounding like a bit of a Debbie Downer, I have a question. We budgeted 1.863, Christine, and now we're seeing 2.7. Were we $1 million off, or am I missing something there?
We were about 700 and something thousand off.
That's
I had
huge.
anticipated a little more money from the modernization funding, but we used some of that for our East End planning, a little bit there.
Okay, and I would just mention that we've talked about fire that we need to plan for, but we should be putting definitely police on the horizon as well. I know we have probably a little bit more time on the police portfolio than we do on the fire, but nevertheless, police should be on our radar. There's been talk from others about a 20-year debenture. But I have to tell you, I would like to see us debate this thing a bit because to me, I would like to see us be a little bit more aggressive, 10 or 15 years. But I'm open to discussion on that. I mean, I don't just want to pick out 20. I mean, I would love to know why 20 versus 10 or 15.
I think the difference between a 10-year would be $221,000 a year. 15 would be about $160,000 a year, and 20 would be $130,000 a year. So if you want to go up another 80-some thousand a year, that's really an option.
Yeah, I just don't know that I love the 20-year number. I'm not sold on any one number, but I would like to see it be a little bit shorter if we can be a little bit more aggressive. Even the 15-year seems more up my alley.
Right. When we did, if I could, your mayor.
Yeah.
When we did the medical clinic back in 2004, they originally went for a 20-year amortization. So they did a 5-year term first. And then when we did renewal, we were able to get it for 10 years. So we actually put that in 15 years. I said, that's the upside to going to a bank and using an amortization that's higher, but only a limited term so that you have that ability to switch it out. Whereas if you go with Infrastructure Ontario, not that they're bad, that's good because they come with a fixed rate. It's that rate all the way and you cannot pay off earlier. Because again, they're in the capital markets. So when they lock you in, they're locking that in. So any investors are getting that investment back. That's what it's
The
about.
advantage is 1.91 versus 2.66.
Right, but it's also close to $90,000.
Admittedly.
Right, Councillor Hawking, you're gonna volunteer?
Fundraise.
Yes, I was just going to thank Christine for the appointment. No, my point is between a 15-year and a 20-year, it's $30,000, and I know it's interest, but it allows, I think, long-term more flexibility for the municipality. You start paying off too much, and you might impinge yourself down the road with other important projects. So that's my take. And then my second question, and Christine answered it, I wanted to know what the debenture was for the medical. It was a different setup than we're talking tonight. So thank you.
So Chris, reassure us that we will be able to afford a new fire hall along with the theater. And to me, the police station is not quite as big of a capital project.
Yes, it's my understanding that'll be under $1 million. It's hopeful that we could use some of the police's own reserves to help out a little bit with that. I know they want most of that for legal and other areas, but they did have a big windfall in the last 2 or 3 years. Be nice to be able to use part of that. We could always borrow internally from our own reserves for the police and pay that back over a period of time like we do for our fire trucks and stuff like that.
But you're confident that our taxes will not go way up when we're building a new fire hall and renovating the theater?
Well, I can only hope that our casino revenues come back to normal and that we can start taking some of that money and put it where it needs to be. And we did start in 2017 or 2018, I think it was, our new tangible capital asset reserve as well as investment reserve. So we started putting the funds away for that. So our reserves are getting better. And as I mentioned, back in 2011 to 15, we had almost $569,000 in repayments each year. And I did the calculation for doing a 20-year at 130. Even if we did it for a 15-year at 160, that's only $30,000 more. We were still below what we would have paid back in 2011 to 15 at that time for loan repayments. And that's with a fire hall at $3 million at a 2.9% interest rate.
I see that we won't reach that number, but times have changed, and to me, the money isn't as free flowing as
Correct.
it has been. And I think we'll find that out with fundraising also, like things are tight. So
Well, I'm hoping with our new subdivisions, we're getting a lot larger assessment base that will be able to help us a little bit more with these extended growth areas
right.
to help us pay for some of that.
I do like the 20-year length because it does give us leeway if something happens. You know, you never know.
Right.
Deputy Mayor Hicks, then Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Worship. Christine, are you recommending one over the other in terms of debenture through Infrastructure Ontario versus a bank?
That's really council's decision whether they want to go that direction. I can put all the application and stuff in place to look at the Infrastructure Ontario. Again, I can't do the loan until it's actually that we require it. You may remember we went out to the P&H Center when it was up for renewal, and we got a 10-year term, guaranteed 10-year, and we went through a bank, and we were able to pay off money in between that. So we went in with a $3 million amount for P&H Center. We paid off about $600,000 because we had that in fundraising that was total. and we paid that down. So when we went to our 10-year, it was at 1.5 when we went back, and that will be done in 2025. I think there's more flexibility with banks, but the Infrastructure Ontario has guaranteed rates, because who knows what's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years. Our rates could go from 1.91 or 2.66 up to 6.85 where we paid before. So it really depends on what we're comfortable with.
So for what it's worth, Your Worship, in my view, if we're going with a bank, I'd be comfortable with the 20-year mark, because it does allow us that flexibility. If we have a 5-year term, we can look at what the rates are in 5 years and be able to make a decision. But if we have to be locked in with Infrastructure Ontario, I would want us to target 15 years. So depending on where council decides to go, if it's with a bank, I would support 20 years. And if it's with Infrastructure Ontario, bank 20 years, Infrastructure Ontario, 15 years for me.
Bank being a 5-year term with a 20-year amortization.
Correct, yes.
Okay, Councillor Hawking.
I think Councillor Cable was, see ahead of me?
Sorry.
No, oh,
Cable. Darn. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Worship. I wonder, while Deb and Paul are with us, is it worth talking about the $450,000 theater equipment? I know you had mentioned about $80,000 reduction if we go with manual light rigging. Like, is that 450? Are we thinking it's really going to be like 250? I know originally we talked about the sound system being around 40 and the light bars around 160. So I'm just not sure how we moved from like a 200,000 to 450, kind of in that equipment.
Paul, did you want to comment on that? And you must be on mute somehow. We have those gremlins tonight.
Your Worship, can you hear me now?
Yes.
My apologies, and thank you for the opportunity to be at council this evening. I believe there's some flexibility in that, through you, Your Worship, to the councilor's question. I believe there is some flexibility in that price. I'm not sure we can cut it in half, but I do think I can be optimistic about maybe saving 30% on that. Beyond that, we would take away, the functionality. What I can commit to, Your Worship, working through your staff, is that we will be able to divide those prices up and maybe recommend a package that is focused on providing functionality in the short term, and also a focus on providing a lot of versatility so that they can have some good professional shows. So we've put some really good backbone into the infrastructure there finally, and it gives you a lot of flexibility for the future. So I think our task is to come up with a smart package that maybe saves some money for you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Councillor Hawking.
thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to go back to this this rate again, 20-year versus through the government or through the bank. I mean, when a person buys a house, they have a choice of a variable rate or a fixed rate. And variable rates are okay as long as the market tends to not fluctuate in the wrong way, going up. So my advice to a young couple when they were buying a property and putting down, getting a mortgage, I'd always say go a fixed rate at 5%, because then you can plan. You know exactly what you're going to be paying. A variable rate could change within 6 months, and then you could be stung with a higher rate than had you locked it in. I'm of the opinion that we need to understand what our long-term costs are, so that we can budget appropriately and not have projects down the road. You could go to a 5-year rate with the bank, and then in 5 years, that rate could be, like Christine said, could be up 6 or 7% based on what's happened with them with the dollars. So I like the certainty of long-term costs, and I'll be quiet now.
Thank you. Chris, and then Warren.
Okay, just to answer Councillor Hawking's question, Mayor.
Yes.
We could come back to council, which I'm planning to do anyways, at the end of the project when we're ready to finance it. And at that time, we can see what the rates are for Infrastructure Ontario, and then make a decision at that time whether we go the direction of Infrastructure Ontario or with a long-term rate with the bank. And then it'll be council's term at that time. Because I can't guarantee that it will be done by the end of December. So this could be a 2022 option at the time when we move forward, when it's fully funded. And as for what Paul was saying regarding the theater equipment, there are options there as well. We don't have to put a projector in, we don't have to put a screen in. Those are things that could be wired and ready to go. So when we're ready to add those components, we could add them at a later date. You basically want to make sure that anything you cannot change during the construction gets put in there, so all the wiring is available, ready to go. We put in the proper lights, we put in the rigging that's required that we cannot change, but we can always add things to where the wiring has been put in.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do appreciate the opportunity to talk about this financing, because I think it's a very important component of it. I myself agree with Councillor Hawking, and in the Infrastructure Ontario numbers give us that stability. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if we found ourselves in a position where we had this extra money to pay off in the future, we can put that in reserves for our other projects, such as the fire hall or the police station. Could we not, Chris?
Yes, you could. You could also then say, hey, this is extra money. Let's put it in a GIC. Let's put it in an investment and use that money for a future capital project as well, like you've said.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Hawking. I think, we should be in a fixed rate going forward. I just, we don't know which way rates are going to go, and they're at an all-time low. And I totally agree. I think we should be going with a fixed rate. And what's the time of completion for this project? Would that be Paul or Chris?
I think between Paul and Deb and I, we had talked about it. We said at least 9 months. So if they don't get started now till July or August, we're talking at least till March. By the time everything happens, I don't think we're really going to get people in there till about April, May, possibly June.
Right.
It's really the materials are very hard to come by right now. Like they're all on back order, so it's very difficult for some of these contractors to get everything done. Paul, would you? Can't hear you.
Yes, sorry, Christine, through Your Worship. I fully agree, and I actually think that we should we shouldn't rush this one, because I think we'll actually do better financially taking our time and doing it right. And I think it actually coincides with a really exciting spring season for next summer. I think the timing is good. 9 months is really plenty of time. But on the other hand, I don't want to, I don't want to get into crazy sort of enforcement stuff. These people are under a lot of pressure these days to get these materials, and we've got to work with them, and it's important for them too to stay on time. So we have a lot of confidence, and we're really pleased that it's some local talent. That's a really positive thing for you. You're adding a lot to your community's economy. So anyway, I'm going on and on. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. I just think it'd be fair to our users and renters that are planning to put shows into our facility that they have some type of time frame. They need time to book entertainment into new theater. So I think we need to reach out to, say, our back porch production people and give them some timeline on when the project's going to be finished. Thanks. Thank you.
Chris?
If I may, if Sherry's on the phone, I know she's been in contact with the user groups and we've already told them that possibly June of 2022 could be delayed. We told them for sure nothing this year. It's not going to happen this year.
Yeah, just to clarify, Chris, we've communicated that there'll be nothing for September to December of 2021. We haven't communicated January to next June. So just to clarify that. So we need to, obviously, and that I just made a note in my day book, touch base with Chris about theater user group communication tomorrow. So that will be coming soon.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Okay, any further questions or comments? So as it reads, the recommendation is Zettel Fisher Contracting for 2.7 million rounded. And for the financing, it reads a debenture for $2 million, up to $2 million with Infrastructure Ontario. So I'd like to vote on that and then we'll see where it goes from there. So it's been moved by Councillor Fitzsimmons and seconded by Councillor Hawking, all in favor, as it reads.
Sorry, can we have some discussion?
Oh, sorry. Thought we had it.
Sorry.
Deputy Mayor Hicks. Please.
May I, Your Worship?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm in support of the motion as I see it right now because it doesn't commit us to 15 or 20 or anything like that. I like what I see. I'm comfortable with going with Infrastructure Ontario. I'm comfortable with the 2 million. And do we have to decide tonight whether it's a 15 or 20 year?
No.
So I'd be in support of the motion as it reads this evening with something to come back to us about the details of how long we're committing for later on.
Okay, Chris, comment?
Yes, there will be a process that I have to go through with Infrastructure Ontario. So I think there's 2 times that I have to come back to council for a motion and or bylaw. First to allow me to go through and get the information. And then the next one would be to actually go into that. And at that time, we'll know what the rates are. So maybe the rates are starting to go up. You may say, let's do the 15 year because the rate is kind of what we had hoped it would be that we want to use. Okay.
So any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. All right, so it is 8:52. Shall we take an 8-minute break and we'll be back at 9 o'clock? Yes, thank you, Paul, and appreciate everything you've done, and Deb. So let's take an 8-minute break and we'll be back at 9 o'clock. All right, so we're good to go, Vicki.
Okay, we may resume, Mayor Patterson.
Thank you, Vicki. So back to the agenda, we're at item 6.3, and I have report HR 0421. It's the annual employee group benefits renewal, and it's from Melissa Hilgendorf, our HR coordinator, and I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. I have Councillor Cable and Councillor Fitzsimmons. All yours, Melissa.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. People Corporation has acted on behalf of the town to prepare now our 5th group benefit renewal with Canada Life. And if you may remember, Great West Life has now transitioned to be called Canada Life. So this process includes evaluating the adequacy of our benefit premiums paid in relation to both expenses and other items required to operate the program. Extended health and dental rates for the upcoming year are set based on an analysis of factors, including our actual claims, trends, inflation, and Canada Life's target loss ratio. And our group life and long-term disability rates are set based on a blend of the carrier's manual rates, interest rate assumptions, and our own group's demographics. So I've provided some tables to show our premiums and claims for the previous experience period and our current experience period. Through comparing those tables, you might notice that the claim values for health, vision, and dental have decreased, which is partially, just a small partially a result of COVID-19 and those resulting closures and service restrictions. The claim value for drugs has increased, and that's mainly due to some high-cost cancer therapies that are being run through the plan. The overall combined loss ratio of 63% for the current period means that our premiums paid into the program have been more than sufficient to cover the cost of our claims and expenses. The tables do exclude what are called pooled health claims. So what that means is once the total claim amount for an individual reaches 15,000, the remainder of that is removed from the town's claim experience, which means it's not considered within our rates, and it's instead pooled to safeguard against significant cost increases. So just to give you an idea of how that's been beneficial to the town is in this claims period, our pooled claims increased to over $60,000 compared to last year, or the previous claim period, which was around $13,000. So that pooling provision did protect us from some potentially significant increases there. The original renewal costs so financial implications. Our original renewal costs were anticipated to be an overall increase of 13.8% that was originally proposed by Canada Life. However, our brokers from People Corporation were able to reduce this to an overall very slight decrease. So their work has been great. The total annual cost for the proposed group benefit renewal is $255,513.24 plus PST. This represents a decrease of $1,242.72 over previous year's renewal, or the equivalent of a 0.5% decrease from last year. An increase of 2% to the benefit cost was included in our 2021 budget. And since the benefits renewal occurs 6 months into the budget year effective July, and because the renewal for 2021 is lower than the budgeted figure, there will be some savings to our municipality's benefit costs. So we've provided a chart summarizing the cost for the plan as follows. So you can see the difference between last renewal and this renewal. Rates for the town's accidental death and dismemberment is a plan not through Canada Life, it's separate through AIG Canada, and it continues to remain unchanged since 2016 and represents a cost of about $158 a month plus tax. We have also provided a summary of the last 10 years of benefit costs for your information. And so you can see it's always been a significant payroll expense. However, the movement to refund accounting that Council approved in September 2019 has helped provide some financial stability within the plan. So under that refund accounting, surpluses paid into the plan are refunded to the town, and where a deficit exists, the town is protected from unexpected lump sum payments. So a final refund accounting reconciliation for the 2020-2021 experience period has been completed. And for both town and Hanover Police Service combined, a surplus of approximately $74,000 exists. Of that value, about $34,000 is specific to the town and the remainder belongs to Hanover Police Service. A portion of that $34,000 will be used to fund our claims fluctuation reserve up to the required 15% of our annual premiums. And the remainder then becomes the property of the town and is held within a refund deposit account. Administration is recommending leaving those surplus town funds in the refund deposit account as a reserve that can be used for health and wellness initiatives and or to offset future increases, which we're thinking likely to occur as COVID-19 restrictions are lifted and staff begin using services more frequently in the future. This report supports strategic direction number 4, sustainable municipal operations. The recommendation is that report HR 04 be received that council accept the 2021 group benefits proposal from People Corporation for group benefits with Canada Life at a cost of approximately $275,954.29, including PST, and that council approved keeping available surplus funds in the refund deposit account.
Thank you, Melissa. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Melissa, it doesn't appear that we're comparing apples to apples. What exactly is in the chart that we see? What is healthcare?
So healthcare would be everything such as massage therapy, physiotherapy, but everything kind of those paramedical services, if I can say it that way.
Okay, and then when we look at the 10-year chart, we see different terms. So it's almost like they're not apples and apples, are they? Because we're looking at life insurance, long-term disability, dental, and extended health.
Right, so the experience periods that are shown in the first tables are kind of comparing last year to this year specific usage and premiums and claims, whereas the 10-year summary is the cost of the actual plan over the entire year.
So, Your Worship, would extended health be healthcare under the current charts? So under the 10-year chart, it talks about extended health. Would that be healthcare under the current charts?
Yes, however, under extended health, that will also include your vision care under that same umbrella.
Okay.
So you're,
dental,
yes.
So dental is a match for dental. Where would long-term disability fit in under the current charts?
Current. Well, so those are, I guess those are pooled claims where they're not based on our actual experience, if that makes sense. So healthcare, vision care, drugs, and dental are based on what we actually use in the plan, whereas group life and long-term disability rates are set not based on our usage, but based on the carrier's rates, interest rate assumptions, and demographics. So one is based on what our staff have actually used, and one is based on, I guess it's just not based on usage. It's all based on prediction.
So it's not in the current chart?
Not for those, not for the first two charts that you see there.
Okay, so life insurance and LTD would not appear in the current charts, but they're in the 10-year charts.
Yes, so the first two charts that you see are just for those experience rated claims.
Mm-hmm.
And LTD is not included in those beginning ones.
And so now life insurance, where's the costing for that? Is that under, if it's not under any of the headings in our current charts, where is it?
That too is another one that is pooled, not based on actual claims. That one you can find, next time I'm going to label these charts as a figure number so we can reference them easily. So I'm going to say my third chart, you can see them comparatively, all of those benefits. Compared last year to this year, you'll see life insurance is included there, long-term disability is included, and dental. So those are monthly costs with totals down below and then converted into an annual cost. Is that helpful for you?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Melissa, for your report. Are benefits negotiated in our contract with our employees, and like, do they say like physiotherapy? Do they bargain for these type of benefits?
So employees on a specific employee level do not. We have an agreement with Canada Life through People Corporation as well that helps determine what is included in our benefit plan and at what rates and coverage levels. So, and we also have groups of employees who are eligible then to participate in that benefit plan. depending on what class they fall into. So, you know, police may have have access to a certain set of benefits, retirees have access to a certain set of benefits, and town staff have access to a certain set of benefits. So on an employee specific level, they don't negotiate different coverages. However, we do on a group level.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of report HR 0421? That is carried. Thank you, Melissa. Item 6.4 is report PB 12-21. The subject is part lot control for 701A and 701B on 25th Avenue. It's from Mr. Tedford, our Director of Development and CBO. I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Cable and Councillor Fleet. All yours, Don.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, report PB 1221 is for the release of part lot control. On June 16th, Brian Welling, agent for 1786934 Ontario Limited, submitted an application for part lot control under section 50(7) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, for the property described as lot 30, registered plan 16M-56, and known as 701 25th Avenue in the town of Hanover in the county of Grey. You can see the attached survey, and on the top right-hand corner gives you a key map of where that lot exists within the Brandley subdivision. There's a new foundation going immediately north of this one as well. That'll be the last semi, the one to the north of this one. Zoning bylaw number 2912-15 was amended on March 19, 2018 with bylaw 3009-18, which changed the zoning of the subject lands from residential type 3 zone to a residential type 3 site-specific R3-25 to permit a semi-detached dwelling with amended provisions such as coverage and setbacks. The semi-detached dwelling is currently under construction. Subsequent to council passing the required bylaw, the existing semi-detached dwelling located at 701A and 701B 25th Avenue can be sold as two individual properties. In accordance with section 50(7.1) of the Planning Act, the bylaw does not take effect until it has been approved by the County of Grey and registered within the expiry date of the bylaw. There are no financial implications to the town for this report. And it is strategically, it's attached to the economic development. So if there's any questions, Your Worship, I'd be pleased to answer them. It's pretty straightforward.
Thanks, Don. We do this often.
Yes.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, 6.5 is report PB 13-21. It is the appointment of inspector as per the Building Code Act. Again, it's from Mr. Tedford, our Director of Development and CBO. I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Hawking. Don?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, report PB 1321 is for the appointment of an inspector for the town of Hanover under the Building Code Act. In light of the increasing growth and development in Hanover and the associated workload, the town began recruiting a building inspector in April of this year. After an extensive interview, reference, and testing process, Mr. Andrew Wilkin was selected as the successful applicant. Andrew likes to watch our show, watch the council meetings, so I will gladly introduce and bring him to a council meeting when we can all be together, but If he's there tonight, he can say hello to everybody. But I don't know, I can't see all the attendees, but I do welcome aboard. Andrew brings the position several years of construction experience at the project management level and site reviews with regards to large commercial, residential projects throughout the London area. With it's and it's very through the couple of weeks we've had him around the office, it shows that he has a lot of construction background. We have comprehensive training and professional development program has to be established in cooperation with Andrew, including initially completing 3 Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Ontario Building Code exams. Andrew will work as a per Division C, subsection 314, an interim inspector, as outlined below in the Building Code Act, under the supervision of the chief building official until such time as he has completed the agreed courses. It was part of the hiring process, and Andrew had no problems with that challenge, and he's taken it on very well. So Group C Division 314 inspectors under the Building Code Act, for council's information, talks about the qualification of interim inspectors. It's verbatim as you are reading here, so sometimes legalese gets a little confusing, but anyways, it talks about a person may be appointed or remain appointed under the act as an interim inspector whose duties include the supervised plans, review, or inspections under the act, even if the person does not have the qualifications set out in Article 3141, provided the person is enrolled in an internship program approved by the minister. This particular paragraph, bracket 1, is for a person being hired in a municipality that doesn't work directly with another person. That's why they have to go into an internship program approved by the minister. And that's a little bit more complicated. Myself personally, I'm helping 2 other ones out, have for quite a few years. But that is when that particular situation happens, that's the paragraph you use. And that person then refers to you for their supervision. Bracket 2 says an interim inspector who is exempt from sentence 1, so this is your legal stuff, shall be supervised by an inspector or a chief official who is registered in the class or registration in respect of which the interim inspector will exercise the powers and perform the duties. The interim inspector who is exempt under 1 shall not, A, issue orders, B, undertake any inspections under certain circumstances, footings below, and also with the completion for the requirements of those 3 articles in there are the occupancy of uncompleted buildings, occupancies of a building over 3 stories in height or over 6,000 square feet. And the last one is for very large apartment type buildings. So those are the 3 things that you see there that under bracket 1, Roman numeral 1 and Roman numeral 2. Where Andrew will be fitting in is under A, or under 3, he will not be exercising any of these 2, A and B. So he's basically under 2 is the only, under 314, the only paragraph affecting him would be like sentence 2 out of Article 3143. So that is the report. The financial implications to this report. There's no direct association other than what we've already previously had in the budget to this report. The recommendation is that the appointment of inspector as per the Building Code Act be received, that council pass a bylaw of 316421 as per section 3.2 of the Building Code Act, RSO 1992, chapter 23 as amended, to appoint Andrew Wilkin as an inspector and a property standards officer. That would allow him to also do duties with regards to code matters inside dwelling units where there is no permit issue, but there is a property standards matter. there's any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them, Your Worship.
Thank you, Don. Any questions for Don or comments? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Don, for the report. I'm a little bit confused, though. The recommendation is that Mr. Wilkin be appointed as a building inspector, subject to section 3 sub 2 of the building code. But all of the discussion that we've had has been under section 314, which speaks of an interim inspector. So are we appointing an interim inspector, or are we appointing an inspector under 3.2?
Just saving a bit of a shortcut, we're not going back to pass another bylaw under 3.2. Again, he's working in a municipality under the supervision of a CBO that's qualified. I have no trouble appointing him under 3.2, because under 3.2 in the act is where council gets their authority to appoint person or appoint people as a CBO or an inspector. That section, when you read it, it says the council of the municipality may or shall appoint, there's no may, the council shall appoint a CBO and the inspectors necessary to enforce the Building Code Act. The one under Division C is more of a management thing, or it's more of a, it's under the Building Code, it's not under the Building Code Act. So one's under the Act, the other one's under the Building Code, which is the regulations. So we're still going to appoint them under the Act.
So just to be clear, Your Worship, we are appointing under 3.2, and we are on good legal grounds to do so. And really, the 3.143 referencing an interim inspector, you're recommending that be followed, but despite the fact that we're following the recommendations with respect to an interim inspector, we still can appoint him under 3.2 as an inspector.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But as far as the Building Code branch, the MMA, he'll be registered there as an inspector, and he'll be registered as an interim inspector under his BCIN. And the BCIN is his Building Code Identification Number, for which Andrew already has. We've applied and got that form within the last 3 weeks. So we're on the right track. So
thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 6.6 is report PRC 0521. It is park classification guidelines. It's from Sherry Walden, our Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture. I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Cable and Councillor Dickert. Sherry, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the report before you this evening and the recommendation for your consideration is that report PRC 0521 park classification guidelines be received, and that Hanover Council support the Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee's recommendations and approve the park classification guidelines as outlined. One of our 2018 approved Parks, Recreation and Culture Master Plan objectives included adopting a parks classification and standards system. Recently, Council approved PRC-03-21 Parks Assessment Direction recommendation that included 7 recommendations related to our parks, with 5 of those objectives within the report, including the potential development or redevelopment of some of our current park spaces. The objectives were included in the report, and I'm not going to repeat them as you've obviously had them before you and have approved those. A parks classification guidelines are adopted by municipalities and used to assist with defining the functional hierarchy of a municipal parks and open space system. These guidelines assist in planning active and passive forms of parks by providing direction for many aspects of park usage defined through size, form, function, and or amenity level. Our Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee has discussed the park classification guidelines before you and agreed to recommend them to Council for approval. The guidelines will be utilized during the development or redevelopment of parks and open spaces and are described as follows. There's 4 classification systems, including regional, community, neighborhood, and open spaces. We also then talk about guidelines related to site amenities, including parking, walkways, washroom, shade, seating, sports field, and size for each park classification, as well as suggested operating guidelines. These guidelines will provide council, our advisory committee, and staff with consistent direction for future development or redevelopment of parks and open spaces. The detailed document was included with this report as Appendix A. I'm not going to go through each area and each classification as you've had that time to review it, but I'd be happy to answer any clarifications that you may have. At this time, there are no financial implications with this report. And at the time that development or redevelopment plans for our parks evolve, further reports, including cost implications, will be provided for council's consideration. The link to our strategic plan is all of the boxes are checked, which I always like when that happens. That isn't always the case. And again, the recommendation before you is that you receive this report and that council support the PRC Advisory Committee's recommendations and approve the guidelines before you. If there's any questions or clarifications, I'd be happy to answer them, Your Worship.
Sherry, any questions for Sherry? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Sorry, I'm noisy tonight. Sherry, no doubt our parks and the equipment are tangible capital assets. So they appear under our tangible capital asset plan. And yet there is going to be a plan here for maintenance and replacement, of our equipment. How do the two tie in with each other? So the tangible capital asset plan versus the plan specifically you've mentioned in this report.
Right. So through you, Your Worship, so you're correct, Deputy Mayor Hicks, that our playground equipment is on our tangible capital assets plan. The operating guideline that's before you is really an annual operations thing. So it's built into our operations budget as opposed to our capital budget. The items that are noted from a guideline perspective would typically be capital related improvements and or new developments. So they would come forward for council approval and we would either dispose of an existing asset or it would become a new asset.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 7.1 or 7, this is committees of council minutes, and we have 8 sets of minutes. The first one, 7.1, is the age-friendly advisory committee minutes. And I need a mover and seconder for before we put these all on the floor. So we'll take Councillor Fleet and Councillor Fitzsimmons. First one, age-friendly advisory, Councillor Dickert, May 18th.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, our age-friendly meeting on the 18th, it was done by Zoom, of course. We welcomed new member Loretta Dunn, who is a great addition to the committee, gives lots of great input. So it's a pleasure to have her with us there. We advised members of the Age-Friendly London Conference, which was a virtual conference and could be attended free of charge. However, most of our meeting did revolve around the seniors directory that we're working on. So we reviewed the content, reviewed the design. We were looking for I remember comments, and thanks to the public and to members of council that did submit those suggestions for us, they will be incorporated into that directory. And happy to report that we've had just great community support, and we are going to have plenty of content for this project, and likely a bigger problem will be keeping it to the 30 pages we're trying to do than looking for content. So it's always good news when that happens. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's questions or comments, just let me know. Item 7.2 is the Economic Development Committee minutes. We have 2 sets, May 19th and June 16th. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to refer to May 19th meeting. It was a virtual meeting. We started off with having Brian Teixeira give us an overview with regard to the public meeting. You all know about this information. There was a motion made at that meeting, and you heard Dave Ford make a presentation at the public meeting on behalf of our committee. We thank David for his time and effort. On the next page, we have basically 5 updates: an update dealing with our strategic plan, an update dealing with Grey County, Launchpad, Hanover Chamber, and the airport. Within the strategic plan, April gives us an update every meeting. So we talk about the Hanover Innovation People Program that you're well aware of. We had a presentation about 2 months ago. Our Community Improvement Program, April gave us a summary there. We have 3 applications. The Business Retention and Expansion is an ongoing program where we're surveying our business community. And especially important right now, we see how they've adapted to the COVID. And our goal is to contact 60. And then Saugeen Connects, we have a new partner, community of Aaron Ellerslie has joined Saugeen Connects. The SUP 2021, and I apologize, I don't know what the acronym SUP, but it has to do with youth, and it's been very successful. They've had 56 applications, and 19 of those are from Hanover. There's an article there on the women issue that Saugeen Connects, and this is a very, very strong organization within our community, and deals a lot with the digital organization. The Grey County, the second update dealt with the virtual job results and the local immigration partnership strategy. Launchpad, Emily Morrison has joined our committee as a guest and gives us an update on the Launchpad. Chamber of Commerce, Kurz Schmaltz, a past president of the chamber, is the member on our committee, and we get an update there. And I don't need to repeat that. You've probably read all of that. And then finally, I give an update on the Saugeen Municipal Airport. The following meeting in June, which just happened this past Wednesday, and I'd like to make a plug right now, if people are listening in. We're going to advertise for 2 new members. Mr. Hodgkiss and Miss David have regretfully left our committee, and we thank them for their contribution. So look in the paper for an application to join this vibrant and exciting committee, the EDC committee. Again, the strategic plans, we dealt with the growth plan. Brian gave a summary. Again, we read the same headings: update on the HIPP, the Hanover's Innovative People Program. This is a good news item, this community improvement program. JD Lyons is going to do a facade upgrade at the Paramount, because next year it's the 100th anniversary of the Paramount Theater at Hanover. And that is something. So we wish JD good luck and look forward to the new outcome. Again, this is an update from my previous on the employer survey. The last month you saw 19, we're now up to 36, which means 60% have returned. And we did this back, I mean, I wasn't on council, but April tells us 2015, and they got 39 out of 60 back then. So we're on board to match that same number. But again, to anybody out there, contact April if you'd like to complete a survey. Our meeting in July is going to analyze the results of that survey. So the end date is the end of June. The Saugeen Connects again. There's the item on youth, and 20 youth representing 14 businesses are now going in Hanover. So that's pretty exciting. Part of that is the ice cream up the Neptune Scoops through Blue Launchpad. Hope you've had your ice cream going. It's very good. Tourism, summer radio program, and the top 10 outdoor activities. Grey County update again. And the chamber and the Saugeen Municipal Airport. And I'd like to highlight this because maybe someone's out there interested. we're sending a RFP out for the potential opening of the restaurant at the airport. This is a golden opportunity. We, as I've mentioned before, we have a dynamite airport manager now. It would be a great fix to have a dynamite restaurant operator to help complement our great services at the airport. So stay tuned. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Hawking. I don't see any at this time, so we'll move on. 7.3 is the Heritage Committee minutes from May the 20th. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a huge amount of activity at this meeting, but the committee continues to work on putting some new heritage building signs around town at some of the older buildings. And a lot of conversation in this meeting was pertaining to some activities that they might participate in regarding Canada Day, which unfortunately, as we know, was largely canceled. So some of that conversation really isn't going to take place. The one thing that they are working on is possibly taking over the 780 square feet space inside the P&H Center, the former CIP office that they may have for a display case. They're working through some logistics on whether they'll do that, but that certainly would be a nice focal point when we get a lot more people back, other than getting vaccinated. So but there's logistical things in terms of manning it and having volunteers there and that. So we're kind of working through that at the moment.
Okay, good. Thank you. 7.4 Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Parks, Rec and Culture Advisory Committee met on May the 27th. You're going to see more information coming at the end of the meeting around Canada Day and things happening for Canada Day, our second virtual Canada Day. So that's exciting. Hopefully next year we'll be back to a more traditional event. You'll notice if you're out on the community trails that preparation is underway for new trail marker signage. It's going to include direction information, sign numbers for emergency, a map, and some trail etiquette rules. The Ewell Market is running Saturdays in Heritage Square from 9 to 1. A great way to get out and be in our downtown, and lots of great vendors at the Ewell Market. We talked about the park classification document, which we just reviewed. We also looked at a checklist for community visits. And so each member of the committee is going out to look at parks that have recently been updated in our surrounding communities, and we'll be coming back to a report on those park visits and to look at our next steps in our park review and assessment. And we also discussed the skateboard park letter, which came before council, and Parks and Rec staff are going to be meeting with Austin to continue to have discussions about that. I think that is the majority of our meeting. The only other thing I would note is that in the minutes it talks about music in the square starting Sunday, July the 25th, but that's actually been postponed until August the 15th, just because of COVID gathering limits.
Right, good, thank you. 7.5 is the Cultural Roundtable Committee minutes from June the 2nd. Councillor Hockey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, there's a lot of crossover between some of our issues on the roundtable and with economic development. So the first one there was the HIP campaign update. I also want to dovetail on Councillor Cable's comments with regard to the music in the square that our subcommittee of the roundtable have been dealing with. We've been working closely with Laura and Sherry and April, and we've decided to, because of the number, we've decided to postpone July the 25th. And Councillor Cable indicated August the 15th. What we've done, we originally planned one the last Sunday of every month. Now we're going to do 2 in August and 2 in September. So our community's still going to get 4, but they're going to be, as I said, with numbers allowing. Again, we've got community support from the Lions Club and Councillor Cable is looking after the entertainment, and he promises a top-notch entertainment program for us. The cultural plan actions, we've got a downtown public art initiative. The Saugeen Artists Guild are going to use the DIA parquet for a mural location to be placed at the edge of the flagstone. Stay tuned for that. We have Liam Kelly, who has become a very active member on our committee. He has investigated the idea of a rainbow crosswalk. And we discussed this at the committee, whether we should get the Board of Works to do it for us. But we as a committee would like to take this initiative on ourselves. We feel more can be gained by the volunteers and committee members to look after the painting of that crosswalk. Now, we won't do a shoddy job. We'll have people there to make sure we do it the right job. We're looking at 18th Avenue right now, just down from or up from JDSS. And that's going to be planned for next year. There was some cost estimates in that proposal. One of the things that the Cultural Roundtable, I think, has spawned is the need for a event development program. And Sherry and April have been working on this, and the crosswalk initiative would fall right into that type of request for support from the town. So we're working on that, and you'll see that Susan Sacco, seconded by Bev Morgan, indicated that we will bring this to council. And the suggestion is in the month of September, which will lead right into our Cultural Day activity planned for the last weekend in September. We highlighted our artist spotlight. If you see that on the social media, we've had Brian Lamont, we've had the JDS band, we've had Bev Morgan, who is a member of our committee, Gregory Dow, and Barbara Hicks. So great artists, and we plan to keep focusing on our artists and our cultural community through this artist spotlight. Just for your information, Liam is the individual who is sort of coordinating on this. So thanks to Liam. Again, round table updates from the Heritage. That's Al Morrow and Sherry Walden. Library, Susan Sacco, and great news, they got the best jet for their hanging pots. Susan reported, so better than last year. It's amazing. Thanks to Canadian Tire for their sponsorship. Bit of news from the Saugeen Artists Guild and the production for the Hanover Community Players, which after tonight's discussion will definitely be on a virtual, and it's Little Red Riding Hood. I don't know who's going to play the big bad wolf, but stay tuned. And that's the Cultural Roundtable.
Thank you, Councillor Hawking. 7.6 is the Planning Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Planning Advisory Committee met June 15. I'll just go over some of the highlights here. Number 2, the Secretary Treasurer thanked Tim Norwood and the PAC members for continuing creation of an open letter on our land expansion meeting on May 25th. I also would like to thank the PAC committee and Tim for their input. It was excellent. Number 3, the Secretary Treasurer, this would be LOP number 3. The Secretary Treasurer circulated a letter dated June 14th, 2021 from MHBC Planning, Urban Design, Landscape Architect representing Maple Leaf Foods. Correspondence outlined impact on the 90 10th Avenue relation to the official plan amendment number 3. The Planning Advisory Committee recommended to Council that official plan amendment file number LOP 3 be adopted and amended, including the wording requested by MHBC Planning and Urban Design representing Maple Leaf Foods, and the letter was dated June 14th, 2021 and forwarded to the county. Number 5, this was a zoning bylaw amendment Z3-21 425 Hanover Inc. Daniel Chatley. This property would be behind Hanover Dental, sort of where the new Tender Pizza is going. Chair Tim Norwood welcome Daniel Chatley to the meeting to discuss the client's proposal. Ren Design representing 425 Hanover Inc. stated that his client is proposing to construct a 3-story, 21-unit apartment building on the lands known as 434 18th Avenue. The existing plan is preliminary and there's flexibility for changes. The plan will offer affordable rental housing at a current average cost. Mr. Chatley stated the development would consist of one and 2 bedroom units with an average floor area of 80 millimeters. The committee members questioned whether fencing would be installed. The Secretary Treasurer stated that the issue should be addressed during the site plan control process. Number 6, there's been some concerns around the former JDSS property, and the Secretary Treasurer stated that the property standards order has been finalized against the property. A future maintenance plan to be implemented, and it's nice to see that property cleaned up. And that's all I got to report, and I'd take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Fleet. Any questions? Okay, 7.7 Joint Health and Safety Committee minutes from June 10th. Chief Baker.
So as you stated on 10 o'clock on June 10th, the Joint Health and Safety Committee met. We reviewed inspection reports from all the town departments. We reviewed, we actually selected the Public Works Department for a shout out in the next staff newsletter for their work in setting up the vaccine hub. We reviewed an incident report incident reports for the quarter. We discussed health and safety training. One was for health and safety for leaders, and the other was a new fuel handling course that we're going to trial. Ken Campbell spent time reviewing his experience in a recent workplace violence and harassment webinar. We reviewed new wellness initiatives from People Corp for full and part-time staff. We also discussed the Health and Safety Association Green Books and decided purchasing new books every 2 years and posting a notice for staff as to where to find information. Additionally, we also reviewed 3 town operating guidelines to ensure they are current, and the meeting was adjourned at 11:10. I can answer any questions if anyone has any.
Councillor Hawking.
Not on your report, Jeff, but I've been asked by a fellow commissioner on the Sauga Municipal Airport who lives over near Tiverton. And he attended the immunization hub, and he was with another friend who works at Bruce Power. And he said his friend never, ever goes to something without complaining about it, something. He always finds a fault. And he came out of the vaccination hub and he said, wasn't that fantastic? And this gentleman almost fell over. And he said, what do you mean you don't have any complaints? He says, that's the best run hub I've ever witnessed. So he said, pass that on to all the persons who are responsible. I think it's been unbelievable. And the town of Hanover has really gained a lot of positive press with that hub. So thanks, Jeff. Pass it on to committees within our town. They deserve a round of applause. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, 7.8 Emergency Management Program Committee Agenda. Chief Deniger.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it should be the minutes of that June 3rd meeting at 10 a.m. And that was a quarterly meeting that we had with the committee. We spent time talking about the present COVID emergency, reviewing roles, the statement of emergency, and activities of the control group. We reviewed the committee membership and the chair for 2021. I reviewed work with the county on updating our critical infrastructure listing. We reviewed an updated evacuation document, UPI energy storage information, and provided We discussed the amateur radio operations presentation that would be upcoming at a meeting. We also reviewed the new IMS 2.0 document, but as the committee already uses IMS for emergencies, we didn't feel that it provided any new information. We reviewed training and mock exercises for 2021, and I updated the group on 2021 public education activities and plans. We also reviewed lessons learned so far from COVID-19, and we closed the meeting at 11:20. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I don't see any, so thank you, Chief. So that was the last set of minutes for that motion. We just highlighted 8 sets of minutes. It was moved by Councillor Fleet, seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons, and that motion is to receive and approve the recommendations in those 8 sets of minutes. So if there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is number 8, our bylaws, and we have 8 bylaws this evening, and I'll take a mover and seconder to put those on the floor. So I have Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Dickert, and I will ask the clerk for the intent of those bylaws, please.
Bylaw number 3157-21 is a bylaw of the town of Hanover to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Hanover at its regular meeting held on May 17, 2021, and special meeting held on June 7th, 2021. Bylaw number 3158-21 is a bylaw to amend bylaw number 3144-21, being a bylaw to establish the rates, fees, and charges for various services provided by the municipality. Bylaw number 3159-21, being a bylaw to accept certain lands and to dedicate and assume certain lands as public highways. Bylaw number 3160-21, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of the sums required for the town of Hanover, downtown improvement area, upper tier county of Grey, and for education for the year, and to strike the rates of taxation per same, and to further provide for penalty and interest in default of payment thereof for 2021. Bylaw number 3161-21 is a bylaw to be a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Hanover to adopt a community safety and well-being plan for the town of Hanover. Bylaw number 3163-21 being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Hanover to authorize the signing of an agreement with the county of Bruce, the county of Grey, and participating lower tier municipalities for a joint community safety and well-being plan advisory committee. Bylaw number 3164-21, a bylaw to appoint an inspector under the Building Code Act. And bylaw number 3165-21, a bylaw to remove certain lands from part lot control in the town of Hanover.
Thank you, Brian. So it's been moved and seconded that bylaw numbers 3157-21 through to 3165-21 be introduced, and that they are taken as read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and inserted in the bylaw book. Are there any further questions or comments regarding those bylaws? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 9 is correspondence requiring action, and the first one is Saugeen Municipal Airport requesting funding for the for a flag and flagpole. Councillor Hawk,
Yes,
did you want to-
thank you, Worship. Yeah, this was written on behalf of Philomena. She'd like to upgrade the entrance of the airport and put a flag from each municipality on a pole, and she's indicated how they would be set up. West Grey has already committed to the project, but the project can't go through unless all 3 municipalities approve it. I've been talking to Chris Walker, and we do have some money in a reserve for the airport that could cover this expense.
Thank you. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Worship. I think it's a great idea to have an awareness of that the three municipalities have come together for Sauget Municipal Airport. I don't think that that's obvious. Perhaps when you drive by the airport, Sauget Municipal Airport, I don't know if it's obvious that it's a partnership between the three municipalities. So I think that this would be a great way to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Hawking, is this as simple as everybody has a flag up a pole, as opposed to following some of the protocols that we have with some of the flags that we sometimes put up on, at town hall? Is it just basically we're just going to have a flag and that's going to just stay there?
Yeah,
That's the end of it, basically?
that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, that was my question as well. Councillor Fitzsimmons has asked it, but I agree that I think it's nice to promote that we are in a partnership there, and it just proves that as municipalities and our neighbors, we can work together nicely. So good idea.
Okay, so can I get a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Hicks, are you moving or asking? Moving, thank you. And seconder, Councillor Fleet. Any further questions? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I support the project, particularly knowing that we've been putting away little bits of funds each year into an airport reserve account, which is exactly for this type of thing that pops up. We haven't planned for. Along with this, though, I wonder, has there been any thought given along the lines of promoting the fact that this is a partnership? The signage, could the signage be improved to sort of highlight that this is a joint project? It's just a thought.
Yeah. I will certainly take that suggestion to the commission.
Good. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 9.2 is a resolution from St. Catharines. They are petitioning the Ontario government to expand testing of Lyme disease strains and improve treatment and care for those affected by Lyme disease. I know Lyme disease, from what I've heard, is very hard to diagnose. In fact, I only know one person, and it took, I'd say, almost 2 years before she was diagnosed with that. It is a very difficult disease for physicians to diagnose. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Lyme disease is an all-time high right now. And I think we should support St. Catharines on this letter. And it's a terrible disease, and I think we should be supporting it.
Will you move that, Councillor Fleet?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Councillor Dickert?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So item 10 is reports and correspondence. This is just for information. So the first one, 10.1, is PRC 0621. Subject is Canada Day 2021. And it's from Sherry Walden, our Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture. Sherry, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I believe Councillor Fitzsimmons mentioned earlier that we've had to kind of shift our Canada Day plans for 2021 once again, but we are flexible and we've come up with what we think are some creative opportunities for our community to show their Canadian spirit and celebrate both physically. So this is our 29th year having Canada Day celebrations. So we look forward to implementing for our community a Finding Bucky challenge. So our mascot Bucky has been spotted hiding around town, and I've seen some of the photos, and it'll be quite interesting to, I hope everybody can figure out where he's going to be. So basically you'll identify where Bucky is in the photo from a snippet of the photo. You're not going to get the whole thing. And then you'll go to that space and find a letter, and you will spell out a Canadian themed word for a chance to win prizes. And the first 200 participants will receive a free ice cream cone from Neptune Scoops. So a great partnership with Launchpad on that initiative. And then we have our Most Patriotic Decorating Challenge returning. Last year, our pride and red and white around town was outstanding. So I really look forward to seeing that again this year. We're encouraging our homes and businesses to decorate in their best red and white, to take a photo. So it's a little bit different this year. We don't have judges going around. We want you to take a photo and submit it, I believe, by next Tuesday, the 29th. And then we will, like we did with our snow sculptures at Family Day, we'll put them on Facebook, and the winner will be determined through social media by the number of likes that it receives. And we have great prizes, residential prizes sponsored by our local Canadian Tire owner, and Bayshore Broadcasting and Blackburn Radio sponsoring advertising for our businesses. And then our Windows in Time, if you recall I think it was 2014 homecoming, we had our Heritage Committee did Windows in Time posters, and it's basically a photo of our past, of our buildings, and most of our buildings in the downtown core, with a chronological listing from the time that building existed, from the start to what it is now, and what businesses existed in that space. So those posters have been updated, and our committee members will be visiting businesses this week and asking them to post those, that you can do a self-guided tour in our downtown and see the great windows of our downtown businesses. That's one of my favorite things when I'm walking uptown, to window shop, so to speak, as well as to catch a glimpse of these Windows in Time posters. And then Whiteman has indicated they will re-air our 2020 Canada Day show on their local Channel 6. Just don't have a time yet because they only set that programming about 5 days in advance. So two things: you can see it still on our YouTube channel, which if you want that YouTube channel link, I would encourage you to email recreation@hanover.ca for me to give that address. I'm sure I'd have a letter mixed up, or check the local Whiteman channel for the time on July 1st. Financial implications: we have our Heritage Committee grant of $1,200. Our local Canadian Tire owner has provided that $1,750 in gift cards for the home decorating contest. Blackburn and Bayshore Radio have combined for $2,000 for the business decorating. We have other sponsors, including Hanover DIA at $1,000 and Cedar Well Excavating at $450. So our community support for this event is quite significant, and we are so appreciative of that. And then as well, through our approved budget, we have $2,000 allocated for Canada Day. So it will be a great day to demonstrate our Canadian pride, and I'll look forward to seeing some red and white at your homes or your businesses. Any questions? I will answer those.
I echo your words. That's wonderful community support for all those prizes. And just, I hope the community comes together, and like you said, we will be red and white for Canada Day. So, okay, Saugeen Municipal Airport at 10.2, we have 4 sets of minutes. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm only going to highlight the May 19th because the other ones were closed meetings for a specific issue. The one on May 19th, we started to get a little concerned about the finances of the airport, being that the restaurant has been closed for such a long period of time. So Deputy Mayor Hutchison, the West Gray rep, and Christine and Philomena sat down and did a sort of a 6-month review, and we highlighted that at the meeting. We then had Philomena's report. And under new business, we're looking at possible ways to increase the revenue. So we have a couple of items mentioned there for increasing the revenue. The hangar report, we've had 2 new hangars being built there. We're still running into this motocross event with the insurance companies. We can't seem to get that finalized. We certainly don't want to be in a liable situation from the airport's position. So either the sponsoring group takes ownership, or I think it'll be postponed. We're just running out of time, and we're sort of running into a roadblock. And we have in the Saugeen Valley Conservation people come in and look at our property because we think there's a possibility of maybe a leisurely walking trail for people who fly in and want to take a little walk around the airport. So that's a possibility. Again, it's not going to be a huge capital expenditure. It'd be something that cut down some trees and maybe use some of the shreddings to give a pathway. So that's what we're looking at. And then we had an in-camera meeting.
Okay, thank you. Item 10.3, this is Grey County is endorsing the National 988 Suicide and Crisis Hotline. That is for information, and I believe we endorsed that back in April. It was the town of Caledon, I believe. So 10.4 is from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, just advising us about entering step 1 on the roadmap to reopening. And item 11 is councillor and staff updates. So let's start. Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be brief. Just one sort of update to mention with respect to Launchpad. Launchpad had its AGM, and that was good. And I guess the announcement with respect to, or the update with respect to the ice cream venture has been scooped by Councillor Hawking. But nevertheless, I'll say again, it was off to, sorry, I try. It was off to a great start, and from a financial perspective, well beyond expectations. That's it from me.
Good, thank you. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also attended the Launchpad AGM and everything seems like it's going well there. Also attended on our behalf the Western Ontario Code of Conduct consultation session, which really is talking about potential changes to the municipal code of conduct for all 444 municipalities. So, you know, they're doing a consultation process. It may end up being something where there's one code of conduct for all municipalities at present, or it's everybody's are different. I think a lot of council members from all over Ontario feel it's time to change that. So that's going to go through a process, and we'll probably know something this fall on whether that's going to happen or not. And the Canadian Tire hanging basket sale went very well, as Councillor Hawking referenced. Last year was an all-time high, 4,099. This year, a new all-time high, $4,741 for the Hanover Public Library. So a huge thank you to Dale and Kathy Cousins and Hanover Canadian Tire and all the people that came out to support that on behalf of the library. We really appreciate it. And as our worship mentioned earlier, the library has developed a land acknowledgement statement for our meetings as well. So we're really proud of that. And to be honest, that's been working on that for about 6 or 7 months. So I know it's obviously become a really big issue that a lot of people are talking about in the last 30 to 45 days, but this is something that we were thinking well ahead of, you know, a lot of other people because of the things that have been happening in our country right now. So, but anyway, in any event, we've been working on that, and that's going to move forward. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzsimmons. And yes, that's why I say we'll let you take the lead and we'll follow, because your group has done all the work, and I'm sure Agnes has put a lot of time and your board. So thank you for that. And we look forward to that information being shared with us, which I'm sure we'll hopefully have in place for our next meeting. So thank you. Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. For the most part, it's attending committee meetings, age friendly. I've had a couple of those. Saugeen Mobility had 4 meetings with them. Some other things that I did and stayed busy at, volunteering at the vaccination clinic, continue to do that, and the community safety and well-being program, attending those meetings and completing the situation table training from Wilfred Laurier. So, and also did some volunteering out on the trails, helping with the trails eyes and ears people, putting down some mulch on the secondary trails and trying to keep those things in good shape. So that's what I've been busy at. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be brief. I think I highlighted month's activities through my meetings tonight.
Okay, good. Thank you. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. May 20, attended a Zoom meeting coming out of lockdown, planning for a safe reopening with Dr. Era. The 19th, I attended the Culture Roundtable Subcommittee with Councillor Hawking and Cable. May 20th, a DIA meeting, and Councillor Cable also attended, and we were glad to have Brandon on board for that meeting. May 25th, attended a public meeting regarding the growth plan, and it was nice to hear everyone's opinions regarding our future growth. June 3rd, I also attended the Launchpad AGM meeting. Enjoyed my first ice cream cone from Neptune Scoops. Went down to Eat Well Market. It's nice to see all the vendors up and running. And I was out for one of my walks, and just back along the trails, walked down to our Hanover Park. And I just want to compliment Parks and Rec and Sherry and Tom for the great job. The park's in great shape. Our trails look great. I just want to say thanks to Parks and Rec staff for doing such a great job. And I also have been volunteering at the vaccination center. That's all I've got to report.
Thank you. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. Like we've already mentioned, Cultural Roundtable Subcommittee looking at music in the square. And again, like Councillor Hawking was saying, we're deferring till August the 15th, but then we'll be going every other Sunday until Culture Days at the end of September. So we're really looking forward to bringing some more energy into Heritage Square this summer. I've also been volunteering at the Vaccination Hub a few times. And I think, as it was mentioned earlier, that's probably the most positive place to be at this point in time. People of all ages becoming eligible, I think, has been great. And it's great to hear all the positive comments coming out of the Vaccine Hub. I attended the DIA meeting with Councillor Fleet, as was mentioned. We had Parks and Rec Advisory, like was in the minutes. I also attended the Launchpad AGM. Hanover Bentinck and Brant Egg Society has been meeting virtually and is planning to host a variation of the Fall Fair this year. So lots of details to work out there. And racing is, of course, underway at Hanover Raceway on Saturdays at 1:30 is their post time. And hopefully spectators will be on site in the coming weeks. I also had the opportunity to partake in the Eat Well Market a couple Saturdays ago, and it was great to see all the vendors that were there. And I would just highlight that today is National Indigenous Peoples Day. And so today I'm wearing my orange shirt, orange being the color chosen to support the survivors of Indian residential schools. Orange represents the shirt that was gifted to Phyllis Webstad, who is a survivor, and she wore the orange shirt to the school. And the shirt, which was given to her by her family, was taken from her upon arrival. And so we wear orange as it reminds us of all the things that Indigenous people have gone through and continue to go through.
Thank you. Okay, so June seems to be the month for annual meetings. I attended Big Brothers Big Sisters of Grey Bruce, their annual meeting, Launchpad, and Public Health Agency's annual meeting. I also attended Elect Her session, which is sharing information to other women about preparing to put your name forward on the ballot in the upcoming election in 2022. I attended a session for digital organization with WOWSA, and that's Women of, I don't know what the second W is, Women of and Saugeen area, Wellington and Saugeen area. There we go. So I picked up two things on that. So it really helps with all the emails that you're receiving. If you get a chance, this lady is very good. I know it's being offered through the town. So two little tips that save a lot during the day. The Air Cadet annual review was very good, and also Decoration Day put on by the Legion. It was on Facebook, a very small service, but still the service was put on top of the regular meetings. So it was a good month. And now I'll ask staff. Brian, Mr. Teixeira, our CAO clerk.
Thank you, Worship. Lots of COVID-related ongoing meetings, the Emergency Control Group, County CAOs, Physicians Group, Vaccination Hub, County ECG, as well as the Hanover Owen Sound Task Force, which is just wrapping up its work. So that should be a really interesting read when the report's done. With respect to the growth plan, invitations have been sent to West Gray as well as Brockton to meet to discuss the growth area options that council has delineated. Those were sent out last Monday, and at this point I haven't heard from either Brockton or West Gray. Although I anticipate hearing relatively soon. We also have a meeting with Gray County Planning coming up this Wednesday with respect to their growth management strategy, particularly with respect to the employment population projections. We feel that we're greatly underrated with respect to those numbers. So we're going to be meeting and discussing why those numbers are projected to be so low and going from there. There's been a number of requests for proposals and tenders. However, those are starting to wind down. I think most of our capital projects are underway as we speak. Working on a report with respect to municipal election alternatives. Hope to bring that in July, if not August. And also working on a report with respect to hybrid meetings. And depending on if there are any announcements with respect to funding in the next little while, I'll bring that report to July, if not August. And that's it.
Thank you, Brian. Chris?
Thank you, Your Worship. The auditors have been in and they were working on our 2020 audit. They were hoping to come to council in July, but they could have only made it on the 3rd week of July. And since we only have one meeting in July, it will have to be postponed till August. As you know, we were working on the theater tender process and that was presented tonight at council. And I'm also working on the report for our Safe Restart funding that we received last year, the 1.2 million. I have to show how it was spent in 2020. So we're working on that and then just our basic day-to-day operations of finance. Thanks.
Good, thank you. Mr. Tedford, Dawn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Been busy with regards to getting Andrew broken in as an inspector, and he's enjoying it. I'm enjoying and watching that develop as well. So it's an experience I haven't had around for a long time. Working with a couple of architects with regards to residential development, one at the corner of 24th Ave and 14th Street, the Chris Barfoot property we all know of. It's 144 units total in the original, the concept they're bringing forward, the architect. The other one is the one that was talked about at PAC meeting that Councillor Fleet talked about, was the one behind the denture clinic. It's a 21 unit. That architect has been calling as well, along with another architect that's been wanting to do work on the AMS building or the cannabis building. And that one seems to be coming closer and closer to a new site plan coming back before council. The Cedar East and Cedar West are coming along. They're connected issues, one of them being the loop, the East End Trail. I had a tour with Tom Carl and Sherry Wall, and we all three of us went for a walk on the trail, and it was interesting to just see how it's all going to develop down there. We didn't get a chance to do the trail behind the proposed subdivision, which would be on the 17th Street in the Gooseberry subdivision. I think that'll be our next site visit. The residential permits are slowing down a bit, but they're still coming in. Property standards issue with regards to grass. I think we all got a call not too long about the length of grass and where the grass is. Well, we ended up getting the JDSS looking like brand new again, but we all know that grass grows, and there's a couple other hot spots in town. We're pretty well used to getting the grass cut, and they don't like it put on their taxes, so they generally will get out and get it done. They even show up the day we're trying to cut it too as well, which makes things interesting. And then I'd also just like to mention that the GMS, the growth management, is proceeding along as Brian has indicated. It's very interesting, but it's kind of exciting too to be involved with that stuff, growth management stuff. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Don. Carrie.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a couple of notes that I would make for our residents that may be listening over the coming days on social media. Summer camps, if you're thinking of registering your children in our specialty summer camps, I would encourage you to do so soon. A number of them are full or getting to be full. So there's limited spots available, which is a really great sign. Summer swim lessons, stay tuned. We hope to have some information out soon once we know a little bit better what our firm reopening date will be. Flower watering has started in our downtown core, so we just would encourage our residents and drivers going through our town early in the morning to be mindful of our staff and their equipment. We are out early to try to avoid as much traffic as possible, but just again to be mindful of those staff members and the equipment. I always say to them, people will always notice those flowers and how great they look, and the flower watering is key to that. We had a trail counter on our trails, a couple of them actually, but only one of them recorded numbers, interestingly enough. The other one wasn't working as well. So just to give you an idea, we had a trail counter on 7th Street, so just south of 7th Street towards former Stork Club. And for the month of May, utilizing 70% of the count, because again, we understand that some people will go down and back and therefore be counted twice. So we went 75%. Our total trail users in the month of May was 3,512 on that section of trail. The highest day was Sunday, May 16th, with 196 individuals. The lowest day was Wednesday, May 5th, which was 69. I think that might have been the day it snowed. The average daily traffic is 113 people. And again, that's just on the 7th Street section. So the highest use days are Sundays with 18%, Mondays with 16%, and Thursdays with 15%. So really, really great data. I really wish I had these counters all year long. So you may see that in the budget in the near future, but some really good data. And vaccination clinics, we've just gone through a period of, I think, almost 7 weeks of 3,000 to 3,500 people here through weekly, and you've heard the positive comments, and I echo that. It's really a great partnership with many partners playing a role, but we can't do it without the volunteers, both inside and outside. And we have many Hanover and area volunteers, but there's others who are traveling from Southampton, Kincardine, and they're here weekly. I'm seeing them weekly now. So many kudos to our volunteers, and we're going to continue to need you for the next couple of months. So we hope that you still will share our time with us. That's it. Thank you.
Right. I think vaccinations are going to ramp up. So yes, anyone that can volunteer, we need your help. So, okay, our fire chief, Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship. So for the last month, we've been working hard on our Swift Water recertification training. On the weekends, we're getting staff ready for firefighter 1 and 2 testing in July. With the Regional Training Center. Our new pickup that actually was ordered last year should be ready this week. We've had a really tough time getting parts for lights and sirens, and so we're looking forward to getting that operational. We members assisted the Lions Club this weekend with the duck race. I attended the 812 Squadron Awards night last week with the mayor. We've been very busy with fires and fire investigations, and just lots of activity the last few weeks. And we're also trying to revamp all of our training lesson plans to get ready for our next recruit classes, and continuing with a lot of health and safety meetings for reintegration plan reviews and working on various emergency management priorities.
Good, thank you. I guess I can throw out my tickets for the duck race because no one called. So. Mr. Cooper, Ron.
Thank you, Worship. Public Works, the 15th Avenue, 10th to 13th Street project, the water sewer underground infrastructure, that's been completed. And we're ready for the curb and gutter. That should be happening this week. String line up, it's ready to go. They keep telling me they were going to be here Friday, going to be here today, so maybe tomorrow will be the day. But it's projects coming along fairly quickly, and get curb followed by sidewalk. We should be seeing completion of that early mid-July, so that's good. Just a reminder out there regarding the lawn watering. Odd number homes get to water on odd number calendar days, and even numbered homes get to water on even numbered calendar days. We have seen an increase of water usage with it being dry over the last 2 to 3 weeks, but got a little bit of rain on Friday morning and a little bit of rain today, and it's looking like come the weekend for a few days, there could be a bit of rain coming up next week. So hopefully it'll help the people's lawns out and get things looking a little better and ease up on our water usage a bit. Been helping through April, getting going on these wayfinding signs. Going to be directional signs along 10th Street and 7th Avenue. We're working on putting the basis of them in this week, and stay tuned. We could be seeing some signage installation next week. So we've been helping out Public Works wise to help out with the installation of that. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Councillor Dickert.
I just wanted, Ron, if you could give us an update on the 21st Avenue project there. Is it wrapping up soon, or how's that going?
Yes, wrapping up soon. We haven't had a lot of rain, but any small amount of rain kind of curtails them doing the lining on the storm sewer that comes down 21st Ave. I think they have one to 2 days left work to do. I know they got shut down, small amount of rain Friday morning, and they got shut down again today, but they will be back at it, and I think we'll see the total project up and completed this week.
And Ron, good reminder on when you can water on even and odd days. That's I think we should share that more. So even. All right, Melissa.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have distributed the salary and benefits market survey that council approved in the past couple of months. I distributed it on June 10th, so we're hoping to receive responses by July 7th. So they're trickling in. I'm hoping for more. Continuing to coordinate the parking volunteers for the Hanover Vaccination Hub, and I echo Sherry and others' comments that they all deserve a big thank you, and we couldn't do it without their support. We will be issuing a survey to staff just to help determine the vaccination rate among staff, just for information purposes only. We will have Elizabeth Stefani joining us virtually on Wednesday at 1 p.m. to present her digital filing workshop that Mayor Patterson mentioned. And it is available to town staff and both members of council. Working with the Health and Safety Committee in regards to some recent changes to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and then updates that are required as a result. And regularly participating in management team, Health and Safety Committee, and Emergency Control Group meetings.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's it for the updates. Item 12 is planning and other meetings. All of those meetings are listed on the town website, and they will be included with this meeting's minutes. So you will be able to locate them when you want to find out when the different committees are meeting. So dates to remember and announcements: Canada Day, Thursday, July 1st. The office will be closed. The next regular council meeting is Monday, July the 12th at 7 p.m. And at this time, I'll ask if there are any notices of motion. Seeing none, we do not have a closed meeting. So we have one final motion that's required, and that is adjournment at 10:30. I need a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Hicks and Councillor Fitzsimmons. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Good meeting. And we'll see you out and about.
Good night. Take care, everybody.
Everyone.